de vous accueillir à ce webinaire de
I have the
suivi
pleasure
de
to
validation
welcome
en
you
fait
to
de la feuille
this
technique
webinar
du
for the
Forum national
validation of our
technique
roadmap of
sur
our
le secteur du
technical
tourisme au Maroc.
workshop,
Donc, merci pour,
that is ILO TAM
pour votre
Plus National
authenticité.
Technical Forum to Boost
Le
Mobility,
webinaire d'aujourd'hui
EU Morocco
est
Talent
organisé
Partnership.
par l'OIT
Today's webinar
avec
has been
l'appui de l'Union
organized
européenne
by
et du
ILO Morocco
FEILE.
with the support of the
Avant
EU.
de commencer, peut-être quelques informations techniques. Le
So
webinaire est
before
offert
starting, a
en
few
français et en anglais
technical
avec
info.
l'interprétation simultanée. Donc, si
The
vous voulez
webinar is
écouter dans
offered
la langue,
in both
donc je vais
languages,
parler en
English and
français. La
French,
plupart des intervenants vont parler
and
français
we
aussi,
have
mais si vous voulez
simultaneous
écouter en
interpretation. So
anglais,
if you, I will be
vous
speaking
pouvez
in
activer
French, but if you
l'interprétation
wish
en
to
cliquant sur
listen
l'icône
to
du
the
globe en bas
English
de votre écran
interpretation, you
Zoom.
can click on
Et
the
après, vous
globe
pouvez
at
sélectionner
the
la
bottom of your
chaîne
screen, and you will be
anglaise.
able to
So for the English
select
speakers,
the
the majority of the
English
speakers today will
channel.
take the floor in French. And if you would like to listen in English, you can choose the language from the bottom of your screen, clicking on the globe icon and then selecting the English channel. Je vais maintenant passer en français à nouveau. Donc, je vous remercie
Going to switch
d'écouter
back to
votre
French.
micro
So thank you
pendant
very
les
much for
interventions.
keeping your
Sauf si vous prenez
microphone
la parole, donc il
off
y aura un moment dédié au
during
débat,
the
à la
presentation,
discussion
unless you will be taking the floor during
plus
the
tard. Donc,
debate.
jusqu'à ce moment-là, je vous demande,
So
s'il
until
vous
that
plaît,
time, we kindly
s'il vous
ask
plaît,
you to keep
couper votre micro
the microphone off.
jusqu'au moment où vous prendrez la parole. Je vous invite aussi à
I also
poser votre
invite you
question, à
to
partager votre
ask
commentaire
your
dans le chat.
questions and share
Et au moment du débat, je reviendrai vers
your
vous et je vous
questions
donnerai la
and
parole
comments
pour
in
participer
the
aussi à la
chat,
discussion
and then you
en
will be
direct. Et
given
comme vous le savez,
the
le
floor
webinaire est
for the
enregistré
live
dans les deux
discussion.
langues.
As you
Donc,
know,
un
the webinar
résumé
is
ainsi que la
registered in both,
enregistrement
it's recorded in
sera
both
partagé avec
languages,
vous après la
and this
fin
will
du
be
webinaire
shared with you after the
par email,
end
mais aussi
of
sur
the
la
webinar,
plateforme
and it will
e-campus
be
à laquelle vous
uploaded
aurez
onto the
accès
platform to which you
bientôt,
will
après la
have
fin du webinaire
access
d'aujourd'hui.
after the
Donc,
end of
merci de
today's
votre
webinar.
attention
Thank you very
et
much
je
for your
vais
attention,
passer à
and I'm going
l'ouverture
to
officielle de
move on
notre
to the
session
official opening of
en
our
donnant la
session
parole à Monsieur
by giving
Soukrati, qui
the
représente le
floor
ministère de l'Insertion économique, de la petite
to
entreprise, de
Mr.
l'emploi
Said
et des
Sukrati,
finances
representing
pour
the
le mot
Ministry for
d'ouverture
Skills
du Royaume du Maroc.
and
Donc, merci beaucoup, Monsieur
from the
Soukrati,
Kingdom of
d'être avec nous
Morocco.
aujourd'hui
Thank you
et
very
c'est
much
à
for
vous.
being with us, Mr. Sukrati.
Merci, Madame Mikri. Merci beaucoup de me donner la
Thank you
parole.
very much. Thank you very much for giving me
Je
the
passe le
floor.
bonjour à tout le monde, mesdames et messieurs, chers partenaires.
So, dear partners,
C'est avec un
dear
grand
colleagues,
plaisir
it's
que
with
nous
great
participons
pleasure
aujourd'hui à ce
that
webinaire
I take
dédié
part
au
in today's
suivi et à
webinar
la
devoted to the
finalisation
follow-up
de la feuille de route
of
nationale de
our
partenariat pour les
national
talents dans
partnership
le
road
secteur tourisme.
map in the sector of
Cette rencontre
tourism.
constitue une étape clé
So
dans
this
le processus que nous avons
represents
mené
a key
ensemble
step
avec une
in the
certaine
process that
constance et
we
engagement.
have worked together
Après deux
on.
webinaires
And
préparatoires
after
pour
two
le Forum
preparatory
national
webinars and
thématique
the
que nous avons
national
organisé
theme
dernièrement
forum that
en
we
date
have
du 7e octobre
organized,
2025, donc à Rabat et Temsna, donc c'est les deux.
and also
On a
the
organisé le webinaire et
phase
le
two
forum dans deux villes, à Rabat et à Temsna.
phase forum in
Aujourd'hui,
Taza and
Temsna, c'est une
Rabat.
région beaucoup plus opérationnelle.
They have
Donc,
been more operational.
entamons aujourd'hui la phase de
Today
consolidation de
we
nos travaux.
are addressing the
Donc,
consolidation phase of our
depuis plusieurs
work.
mois,
So
nous avons
for
stimulé
several
ensemble
months,
institutions publiques,
we have worked
représentations du
together with the
secteur
public
privé,
institutions,
partenaires européens
representative
et
of
acteurs de la
private
formation
institutions, European partners,
afin de
and stakeholders
construire
of
une vision
training
commune
in order to
autour de la
share
mobilité
and
professionnelle
reach a common view,
équitable, de la reconnaissance des
in order
compétences
to
et du
work on
développement
the
des talents dans le
acknowledgement and
secteur tourisme,
recognition of
notamment dans
skills
le
and
secteur de
development of
restauration.
skills in
Donc,
the
les
sector of
échanges riches
tourism and
constructifs
restoration.
effectués lors du dernier forum national ont
So at
permis d'identifier des axes
these
structurants,
webinars
de
and at the
définir des
National Forum
priorités
enabled us to
partagées
define
et
shared
surtout une volonté
priorities and
collective de
especially a
traduire ce
collective will
partenariat
to
sur le
turn
terrain
these
de
partnership
manière concrète et
directly
durable.
in the field
Aujourd'hui,
in
notre
concrete
objectif est
terms.
clair,
And today
c'est
our
de
objective is
consolider,
clear. It is to
valider
consolidate,
techniquement et
validate
institutionnellement la feuille de
from the
route
technical
nationale.
institutional
Donc, ce
viewpoint.
webinaire vise à présenter les
This webinar
principaux
is
résultats et
aimed at
conclusions issus du
presenting
Forum
the
national
main
tenu le 7 et le 8
conclusions
octobre dernier.
of the
Aussi,
forum that we held
webinaire vise à
last
valider les
October,
priorités et les mesures opérationnelles identifiées par nos trois
and to
groupes que nous avons
identify
organisés,
our
à savoir le
priorities
premier groupe qui est chargé du
by group.
développement et
So
de la
the first group
reconnaissance des
for the
compétences
development and
en
acknowledgement
alignement
of
avec
skills
ESCO,
and the alignment
et
with
notre deuxième
ESCO.
groupe qui a
The
été
second group
axé sur les conditions de
goes
travail,
next on the
l'attractivité et la
working
mobilité dans le
condition,
secteur,
mobility in
et
the
le troisième
sector,
groupe
and the
qui était
third group
consacré à
that was
l'opérationnalisation
devoted to the
de la mobilité internationale et
operationalization
au
of
recrutement équitable.
international mobility
Permettez-moi de
in
vous
the
exprimer que
tourism
nous
sector.
souhaitons, à travers ces travaux,
So we wish through this
aligner les
work
contributions
to
institutionnelles marocaines et
align the
européennes
institutional
afin de garantir la
Moroccan and
faisabilité,
European
la durabilité des plans d'action,
institutions in
tout en
order to
préparant
ensure the
ensemble
durability of
les
the action
prochaines
plan,
étapes de la mise
while
en œuvre
preparing the
concertée
next
du
steps
partenariat pour les talents dans le
for
secteur du
this
tourisme.
partnership of talents in the sector of
Les
tourism.
résultats que nous attendons, que nous
The
visons
results that we
aujourd'hui sont
expect
très
today
ambitieux, mais elles
are
sont
very
concrètes. Donc nous
ambitious, but they
attendons
are
à ce que
concrete.
nous établissions
And
une
so
feuille
we
de route
expect
finalisée,
that these
validée, structurée
finalized
autour des axes
roadmaps are
stratégiques
structured around
d'actions
strategic
prioritaires et
axes
d'un
with
calendrier de
priority
mise en œuvre
actions
clair.
and a
Nous attendons
clear
aussi un
implementation
engagement
agenda.
réaffirmé de toutes les parties
So with
prenantes,
these, we
marocaines et
restated
européennes,
engagement of
mais
all
également nous attendons
stakeholders,
une vision
Moroccan,
partagée
European, and a shared
marocaino-européenne
vision
sur la mobilité équitable
on
et la
equitable
montée en
mobility
compétences dans le secteur du tourisme.
and the
Et
development of
enfin,
skills
nous
in the
attendons
sector of
également
tourism.
des
And
recommandations pratiques pour assurer un
last but
suivi
not
et une
least,
coordination
recommendation in order to
interinstitutionnelle
ensure an
efficace.
interinstitutional
Permettez-moi, au terme
coordination to be
de
effective.
conclusion de
Let
de
me
l'ouverture, de
conclude
réaffirmer que la
by
réussite de ce
restating
partenariat
that the
repose sur
success of
notre
this
capacité
partnership
collective
relies on our
à
collective
maintenir le dialogue,
capacity
à
to keep
mutualiser nos
the
expertises
dialogue
et à transformer les orientations
and
stratégiques en
to
actions très concrètes.
transform
Au
our
nom du MIEPEC,
intentions
je tiens
in
à
concrete
remercier
actions.
chaleureusement
So I
l'ensemble de
really
nos partenaires
wish
institutionnels,
to
marocains et
thank
européens,
our
ainsi que les équipes
institutions
techniques et
as well as the
organisationnelles qui ont
technical
contribué à
team
la préparation de ce webinaire. Je
and
vous
with the
invite à
preparation of
poursuivre
this
cet
webinar.
esprit de
So I
collaboration et de
invite you
confiance qui a
to
marqué
go
tout
on
le
with the
processus.
spirit of collaboration
Ensemble,
and
faisons
trust
de cette feuille
that
de
has
route un
characterized the
instrument
entire
d'action au
process.
service de
So
mobilité,
together
de
we can
compétences
make
et de
of
l'emploi
this
dans le secteur du
roadmap
tourisme. Je
an
vous remercie pour
instrument
votre
of
présence,
action.
pour votre engagement
So thank you
continu
very
et vos
much
souhaits de
for
connaissances
your
fructueux tout au
presence
long
and
de
your
cet épisode.
continuous
Et merci beaucoup.
engagement, and I wish you fruitful
Merci beaucoup à
exchanges
vous,
during
Monsieur
this
Socrati, pour
path.
votre message
Thank you very
précieux.
much, Mrs.
Je passe
Socrate,
maintenant la
for
parole
your
à Monsieur
message.
Diederik Palman, qui représente la
And I'm
Direction
now
Générale Home
going
DG
to
Home de la Commission
give
européenne
the
pour son message
floor
d'introduction.
to
Pour les
our
francophones, Monsieur
next
Palman va prendre la parole en
speaker,
anglais, donc
Mr.
si vous
Palmandirik,
ne voulez
DG
pas
Home,
de changer
is
la
going to
chaîne
take the floor
d'interprétation.
in
Merci
English.
beaucoup, Monsieur
So we
Palman,
invite
et
you
à vous la
to
parole.
switch on the interpretation channel into
Merci
French.
madame et bonjour chers collègues et
Thank you
partenaires.
very much, dear
Si vous
partners,
me
colleagues.
permettez, je
If
vais
you
faire
allow
mon
me,
présentation en
I'm
anglais
going
pour que plus
to deliver
facilement
my
et je pense
presentation
aussi plus
in
efficace.
English. I will
Donc,
be more
my name is
effective
Diederik
this way.
Palman and I'm in the legal pathways units of DG Migration and Home Affairs, in which unit I'm in particular charged with the EU-Morocco Talent Partnership. It's a great pleasure to join you today online for this important webinar, which is the concluding stage of the National Thematic Forum on the Tourism Sector. On behalf of DG Migration and Home Affairs, I would like to extend my warm greetings to all participants. I'm happy to see many representatives gathered here today from Moroccan ministries, European and Moroccan institutions, the private sector, social partners, and also, of course, our partners from the ILO. Allow me also to express my appreciation for the excellent cooperation with the ILO and MIPEC that has guided this process from the beginning. This process is part of a shared vision between the European Union and Morocco, a vision that recognizes that talent, skills, and mobility are key drivers of sustainable growth and mutually beneficial cooperation. Tourism is not only one of the most dynamic economic sectors, but also a sector that embodies the human dimension of our partnership by bringing people together to learn, work, and build bridges across borders. It's also a sector where we must work together to improve the quality of employment, strengthen skills, and ensure that mobility happens under fair and safe conditions. In that spirit, I warmly commend this forum and the work that has been accomplished already under the EU-funded THAMM program. This effort directly contributes to the implementation of the EU-Morocco Talent Partnership, which is a flagship initiative that aims to promote legal, safe, and mutually beneficial mobility pathways while supporting Morocco's own skills and employment strategies. The Talent Partnership is a cornerstone of our new approach to migration and skills cooperation. It seeks to connect education and training systems, labor markets, and institutions to create opportunities both for Moroccan talent and for European employers facing skills shortages. In this context, the tourism sector offers a perfect test case. It combines high demand for skilled labor in Europe with strong potential for professional development in Morocco. By improving skills recognition, promote decent work, and facilitating fair recruitment, we can make mobility work for people, for businesses, and for both our economies. Today's webinar represents an important milestone. It is a moment to consolidate and validate the roadmap that has emerged from all the hard work done since we started almost 6 months ago. A roadmap that will guide the operationalization of the EU-Morocco Talent Partnership in the tourism sector. We will review today together the outcomes of the National Forum, confirm the priority actions identified by the working groups, and define how institutions on both sides can continue to work in synergy for implementation. Let me conclude by reaffirming the European Commission's strong commitment to this partnership. And in this respect, I would like to mention also that we are looking very much forward to the third roundtable that should be organized before the end of this year. The EU will continue to support initiatives that promote fair mobility, skills development, and decent work, principles that lie at the heart of both our migration and employment agendas. Together, we are building a partnership that turns shared values into concrete opportunities for Moroccan and European workers alike, and for the sustainable future of our two regions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup à vous, Monsieur Palman, pour votre intervention.
Thank you very much for your intervention.
J'invite Madame Myriam Boudra, qui est la chef de projet
I would like to
campus,
invite
sur
Miriam
l'organisation
Boudra, who
internationale,
is
à passer aussi
the
une introduction. Merci,
project
Myriam, et,
manager of this initiative.
Merci beaucoup, Mickey.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all participants. Thank you very much for being there in our last stage, in the last stage of this forum that has started on the 28th of May. So what is interesting, and I believe also the colleagues from the EU and MIPAC have already underlined, they have already said everything that was to be said on the different steps. Let me, however, highlight 2 or 3 points that are important to be mentioned, in particular the presentation made by our colleague on the main points that have been developed over this roadmap in Rabat. So we said that tourism is one of the economic sectors that are the most important ones at the world level, be it in Europe or in Morocco. And we saw that it does contribute.
Il joue véritablement un rôle crucial dans de nombreuses économies nationales.
So it plays a fundamental role everywhere, so in Morocco and elsewhere. So this has emerged in many discussions, and it's important to make the sectors more attractive, focusing on decent conditions. And the skills development is a crucial point. It is a sector where skills are in a continuous exchange with the need of adaptation, alignment with the European markets, and a framework of mobility to make sure that recruitment is made in an equitable way, with an operationalization, in particular, of this mobility. So it is these 3 points you discussed upon when you came to Rabat, and these are the points upon which you built this roadmap that will be presented today. So I would like to highlight how it was mentioned by Mr. Socrates, this important dimension that has been the dialogue between member states, the EU, and Morocco, the dialogue between different stakeholders and public institutions, also the private sectors and social partners. And I believe that is this multi-actor, this different vision, these different perspectives that enables us to have these very enriching discussions. So in this last webinar, once again, we hope to get your comments and make sure that this roadmap is as concrete and realistic and achievable as possible. To conclude, I would like to get back on a point that is very important in the face-to-face phase. It is the visit of the CMC and this image of the young people that you met and their motivation and also their pride. So the fact of being trained in a sector for the future. And I believe that these young people are part of this equation. They are part of this partnership of talents and mobility. And I ask you to bear in mind their faces and their motivation when they have presented their fulfillment, to make sure that maybe tomorrow they wish to migrate towards other countries in a decent way, dignified way, to find possibilities of career development and success in the sector of tourism.
Well, thank you very much, Miriam, for telling us about what we've done so far. And so thank you very much. And before we continue with the rest of the webinar and that we move to the presentation of Mr. Hicham El Bayed, I have prepared an interactive poll for you. So you already know slido.com. So in order to participate to this activity, you have to scan the QR code that you see on the screen, or you can join at slido.com and use the code THAMM Final. So I have prepared a few questions for you. The first one is, in one word, how would you describe your understanding and approach of the tourism sector after the National Forum? So has your understanding of the sector changed? So can you choose a keyword to describe your understanding? So while someone says that it is a promising sector, and also someone else says shortages. So we're going to wait a few minutes for your other keywords. So triple win. So a triple win approach, international cooperation, a dynamic sector, crossed glances, an evolving sector, as we've heard in the presentation of Miriam Boudra. So it's very interesting. We also see the word dialogue, synergy. So thank you for your answers and for your engagement. So once again, win-win partners. This is another significant element, and we will move now to the next question. So according to you, in which area did the forum most contribute to building a common vision or approach? So here you have several options. So attractiveness, fair and decent working conditions, dialogue between public institution and private sector, EU-Morocco, dialogue between public institution and private sector between EU and Morocco, and operationalization of the mobility scheme and recruitment.
Opérationnalisation du schéma, c'est OK, mais vous voyez les résultats qui changent.
So you see that the results keep changing.
Avec l'arrivée de votre réponse.
With your answers, so dialogue between public institution and private sector between EU and Morocco, and the operationalization of the mobility scheme and recruitment, maybe those are the area that have gathered the common opinion. So I will move to the next question, but I see that some results are still coming. But let's move to the next question. So here I will ask you to rank the key lessons from the forum that will be most important for the next steps. So looking at the future, so one for the most important and then the other one. So here, of course, the results will change in the screen. So I will sum up the options that you have. So joint ownership and partnership governance, skills recognition and alignment with ESCO, building trust and transparency in recruitment, focusing on the attractiveness of the sector and working conditions. So I will leave you a few minutes to complete your ranking, but we already see that joint ownership and partnership government is probably the most important, followed by skills recognition and alignment with ESCO, as we discussed during the previous sessions of this forum.
OK. Et la question suivante pour vous.
And the next question.
Ici aussi, vous avez des options.
So you have several options, and the question is, what should be the priority focus of the talent partnership in tourism for the next phase? So consolidating institutional cooperation and public-private partnership, expanding pilot mobility schemes, investing in training and certification, improving working and living conditions abroad, or supporting return and reintegration measures. So you can choose your priority.
Et y a une préférence pour le développement des programmes.
There is a preference for expanding pilot mobility and mobility schemes and for investing in training and certification. These are the two priorities that have been identified. So I leave you a few minutes. So now the first one is investing in training and certification, so as the main priority. And which element is the most crucial to make the roadmap operational? So on the operational side, do we talk about a clear division of roles among institutions or mobilization of resources and funding?
a
monitoring and evaluation mechanism, pilot actions and concrete partnerships, or ongoing dialogue between stakeholders. So the most crucial element is a clear division of roles among institutions, as well as a mobilization of resources and funding. These are the elements that you have chosen as the most significant.
Parfait, donc merci beaucoup et je passe
So thank
à
you
la
very
question
much.
finale.
And then the final
Quelle action
question,
concrète
what
votre institution
practical
peut-elle
action
entreprendre pour
could
mettre
your
en œuvre la
institution
feuille de
contribute to
route?
implement the roadmap?
Élément vraiment concrète,
So
tangible,
what
comme
is
on
the
a
most
déjà
practical
entendu
action?
et discuté
As we have already
pendant notamment la
heard
partie
and
présentielle,
discussed
quelle action
in
concrète votre institution
the
peut-elle entreprendre pour mettre en œuvre la
in-presence
feuille de route?
forum. So
Je vois qu'il y a
what practical action
déjà
could your
un
institution
plan
contribute
d'écrire.
to implement the roadmap?
Et je laisserai le Slido ouvert. Donc,
And
si
I
vous
will
voulez
leave
continuer
the
à
Slido
partager
open if you
vos
want to
idées,
keep on sharing your
vous pouvez
ideas.
aussi le faire pendant
You
toute
can
la durée
do
du
it
webinaire, mais aussi
during the
on
webinar,
va peut-être le laisser ouvert pendant quelques
and
jours
maybe I will leave it open
pour,
for a few days
pour vous donner l'opportunité de
to
continuer
give you the
à partager votre
opportunity to
idée,
keep on
votre
sharing your ideas and comments.
votre idée d'action concrète.
And
à entreprendre.
most of all, your ideas
L'harmonisation
regarding
des
the
règles
practical
nationales et
actions to
alignement
take.
aux standards
So
internationaux
increasing
orientés
the
vers la
training
formation, organiser des
offer,
rencontres entre centres de
harmonization
formation,
of
Union européenne,
REC, REF, alignment to international standards,
et j'attends peut-être
organizing a
encore
meeting between the
quelques
training
petits commentaires
centers
avant
of
de
the European Union and
passer
Morocco.
à la présentation de Monsieur Hicham. Favoriser les
So I
relations
will
entre
wait
les
a few
acteurs
minutes
locaux,
before
les
moving
aligner
to
aux
the
nécessités
presentation of
internationales.
Mr. Isham,
Et voilà, merci.
and then encouraging relations between local stakeholders in order to
Et je vois
align
qu'il y a encore
to
5
the
participants, 6 participants
international
qui sont en train
needs.
de
I see that 6 participants are
écrire.
typing.
Alors, je vais laisser peut-être encore quelques
So
minutes
I
établir
will
une
give
matrice
you a
de
few minutes more.
entre les besoins THAMM et ceux du Maroc
So
et travailler sur
defining
la
a
lisibilité des
matrix
certifications et les adapter
between
aux
the
standards
THAMM
internationaux,
needs and those
identification
of
des populations
Morocco,
cibles, donc
identification of
important de
target
voir
populations,
aussi des éléments,
working on
donc
the
harmonisation et alignement des référentiels avec
readability
les
of
standards internationaux. Donc, il
certifications
y a un peu
and adapting them to
des liens
the
entre votre
international
commentaire.
standards. So
Merci
they are
d'avoir partagé, comme je l'avais dit, et je
links
vais
between
laisser
your
le
comments. So
Slido
thank you for sharing.
ouvert
As I said, I
pour que
will
vous
leave the
continuer à
Slido
accéder
open so you can
à,
have access to it
pendant
during
la durée du webinaire,
the
mais aussi
webinar
après,
and
et vous
also
trouverez les liens
after.
aussi
So you will
sur
find the
e-campus
link as well on the
auquel vous aurez
eCampus
accès.
website.
Mais pour le moment, je vais
But for now,
peut-être
I
arrêter
will
de partager mon écran
stop
et je
sharing my
vais
screen
à ce moment passer la parole
and
à
I
Monsieur
will
Hicham El Bayed
give the floor to Mr.
pour nous aider
Isham
à
El
découvrir
Bayed in
ensemble
order
le
to
résultat
understand all together
de
the results, the outcomes
ces
of
mois de travail
those months
collaboratifs,
of
de co-création
collaboration, of
d'une feuille de route
co-creation
nationale pour le
for
Maroc,
a
la
national
mobilité,
roadmap
les
for
compétences et pour les
for
conditions de travail
Morocco,
dans le
for
secteur du
mobility, and
tourisme.
also to
Donc,
improve
professeur Hicham El Bayed, j'ai
the
le plaisir de
situation
vous
in
donner
the
la parole
sector, in the tourism sector. So
pour nous
thank you very much,
présenter les
Mr.
principales conclusions,
Isham.
les
I
principales
leave you the
priorités,
floor to
les points
explain the
d'action
main action
qui ont
points and
été
priorities that
décidés,
have
qui ont été
been
co-créés pendant les
co-created
différentes étapes du
during
forum.
the different steps of the
Merci
forum.
Hicham et à vous.
Thank you very much, Isham.
Hicham, ton micro est coupé.
Isham, your mic is off.
Okay.
Okay.
Là, vous m'entendez? Ah, ça marche.
Oui,
Très
you
bien.
hear me
Merci,
now?
merci beaucoup, Mickey. Merci à toutes et à tous.
Well, thank
Très
you
heureux
very
de
much,
prendre la parole
Mickey.
pour restituer
Thank you,
une
everyone. I'm
information
very
qui
happy
fait
to take the
la tâche
floor
n'est pas évidente, n'est pas facile
to
parce que
restitute
énormément
the
d'actions
outcomes
effectivement
of
pendant ces 2
this
jours,
forum and of the
énormément
exchanges
d'émotions aussi qui ont
during
été
those 2
positionnées parce
days
que
in Rabat.
l'enthousiasme qui était partagé
There
à
was a lot of
travers les échanges de
enthusiasm
mails,
that
s'est
was
rapidement
shared
concrétisé à
during
travers les échanges
the
que ce
emails,
soit
but
le
it
premier jour ou
became
même à
even more
l'ICMC.
concrete during the
Myriam
first
disait tout à l'heure,
day and
il
even
y avait
in
des
the
jeunes effectivement avec leur
CMC.
enthousiasme,
So
avec
there
leur
were
fougue
the young
qui démontrait
people with
que ce
their
besoin
enthusiasm,
était encore
and
utile
they were
pour
showing
montrer que cette jeunesse marocaine, particulièrement dans le
that
secteur du tourisme,
this
des soirées
Moroccan
chauds
youth,
et de
especially
l'hôtellerie,
if the
cette
field
jeunesse
of
marocaine
hotel and
est très ambitieuse
restaurant is very
et pourrait
ambitious,
éventuellement
and
correspondre
that it could
au levier que nous
correspond
sommes en train de
to the
construire justement dans le
lever that
cadre
we are
du
building
programme THAMM
in the
Plus.
framework
Alors,
of the
ma
THAMM Plus
restitution va
program.
être
So
à la fois par rapport à ce qui a été dit aussi dans
I
les
will talk about what has
allocutions
been
officielles, mais
said
aussi
during
au
official
propos des groupes.
allocutions,
On va essayer
but
d'être
also
fidèle aux propos,
the
de
official
nous
speeches,
rapprocher
but
le plus
I
possible
will also
effectivement à ce
try
qui
to be
a
as
été
close as
exactement
possible
dit,
to what
sachant que
was
l'objectif derrière,
said.
c'est pas de
And
reprendre
the
ce qui se tourne,
objective
mais l'idée
is
c'est
not
aussi
to,
que nous prenions tous et
um,
toutes justement le recul
the
nécessaire par
idea is
rapport à ce qui a
also
été dit,
to
que nous voyons la faisabilité des
know that we
propositions
can
qui peuvent être faites
understand the
et voir
feasibility
dans
of
quelle
this
mesure cette feuille de route que nous
and
appelons
to
tous
see
vœux
in
puisse
to
effectivement se
which
concrétiser le
extent
plus rapidement
we
possible.
can
Et le slide
make
que
this
tu as
roadmap
montré à
practical.
l'instant,
And the slide
Mickey,
that you have
correspond effectivement
shown,
à cette vision. On a
Mickey,
vu toutes
corresponds
ces
to this
missions
vision. So we
de
have seen
partnership, de
these missions of
coopération, de
partnership,
formation, de
of
certification.
cooperation, of
Vous
training,
allez
of
voir effectivement dans la
certification, and you
présentation
will
que tout ce
see
qui a été
in
dit
the
en 5 minutes
presentation
quotidiennes
that
se retrouve bel et bien effectivement dans
what
cette feuille de route.
we have
Alors,
said
dans un
in the
premier temps,
Slido
mon
is
objectif,
actually also in this roadmap.
c'est de vous
So my
présenter
objective is
un
to
petit peu la synthèse
present
selon
a
on va dire
synthesis
cet ordre. Alors, dans un premier temps,
in the
on va
following
revenir
order. So
nécessairement
first of
sur les
all,
enjeux du
I
partenariat,
will
parce
talk about the
qu'évidemment,
challenges of the talent partnership.
En présentant déjà ce premier point comme
And
ça avant d'aller vers
I
le
will
détail, je ressors très rapidement
also
le papier qu'on vous a remis
show
pendant
you so the
le forum
document that you
national
have been
technique et
given
les chiffres
during
qui étaient
the
là.
National
1
Technical
million de
Forum
confiants pourvus en
with a
2023
specific
pour nos quotas
data,
d'installation. Ça
1
veut dire qu'on n'est pas justement
million
à un
of
gisement
vacant
de
job.
potentialité et de
So
collaboration qui est phénoménal.
there
Et
is
l'idée, c'est de
opportunity
trouver
for
les temps nécessaires
collaboration,
pour
and
pouvoir
we
le
need to
faire
find
avec
the
le Maroc
means
comme
to
partenaire
do it
sûr et
with
fiable.
the Morocco
Alors,
as
deuxième
a safe
aspect que je
and
voulais aborder, justement, c'est la méthodologie qui a été adoptée
reliable
pour
partner.
le FNT en 3e étape,
So
qui a été
there are
couvert par M.
3
Première thématique,
themes.
développement, reconnaissance
The
des
first
compétences
one, the
et parcours.
development and
Deuxième
recognition
thématique,
of
conditions de travail et
skills, of
mobilité. La troisième,
competencies, so
effectivement, c'était
ESCO.
l'opérationnalisation, parce que c'est
The
ça,
second one,
après tout, qui
working
nous importe.
conditions and
Et
mobility,
d'ailleurs, on
and
le voit
then
ce
the
matin
third one,
dans le slide.
mobility
Les parties prenantes, j'ai fait en sorte effectivement
the
de
operations of the
réunir
mobility. So then
quasiment, alors on
the
cherche un peu l'exhaustivité,
stakeholders,
mais bien entendu, vous pouvez
and
compléter
of course,
le tableau, peut-être s'il y a des collègues
there
qui
are
nous
some
ont rejoints,
colleagues that
peut-être exceptionnellement
reached
aujourd'hui,
us
qui puissent aussi
today, and maybe
participer
they can
de
participate
par leur institution, de par aussi
with
leur
their
expertise,
institution,
qui
with
intéresse.
their
Et
experience,
puis
if they are
le quatrième
interested,
point, ça serait
and
effectivement la
then
timeline
the
avec effectivement les
priority
actions qu'on va y faire.
timeline.
Alors, les enjeux du
So,
partenariat pour les talents,
regarding the
il nous appartient,
challenges
on n'est pas
of
là
the
par coïncidence
talent
ou
partnerships,
pour
well,
comme on dit, on est là parce qu'il
we
y a
are
effectivement
here
des défis qu'il
because
s'agit
there
de
are
relever,
some
des défis
structural
structurels. Ça a
challenges
été
to
dit,
be
vous
raised.
revenez là-dessus
We
très
have
rapidement, pénurie de
mentioned
main-d'œuvre
the
qualifiée, vieillissement démographique. La
shortage
fameuse
of
pyramide
qualified
des âges
workforce,
habituellement on voit
and
comme la pyramide d'Égypte avec
we see it
un
as
certain
a
élargissement
pyramid
au pied de la
with
pyramide et puis ça devient
the
de plus en plus
bottom of the
sommé
pyramid,
parce
which
que
is
les
broader,
enseignants
larger,
sont
and then it
moins
becomes
présents parce que c'est des populations jeunes.
less
Cette
and less
pyramide
big
des âges,
because
elle est inversée
the
effectivement dans les
population
pays
is
en l'occurrence
aging,
sur le continent européen.
and
Il y a de plus en
especially
plus
in the
effectivement
European continent,
d'allongement effectivement
there are
d'espérance de vie, il y a moins de natalité
So there is an extension of the life, and also, so all this generates all the demographic issues, and this was said during the webinar of September, the 23rd of September. So we know that the objective is to find the right matching between what we teach and between the needs of the enterprises. So there is also the seasonality of activities, and we will find it everywhere. It has become something that needs to be tackled, and we need to find the ways to tackle it, and in order to satisfy the needs that sometimes reach a peak. Then there is also the precariousness of many jobs, and also sometimes for some women, they have to carry some weight, so there is also the arduousness of some sectors, and so precariousness, because for instance, people who work in the tourism sector, what do they do the rest of the time, the rest of the year? So the tourism sector, especially, so there is also a very high turnover rate, and we have seen this as well. So there is a lot that is being done, but we need to find the right way to make them, to guarantee that they are more visible in terms of career, and also to keep and to retain the talents. But because we talk about the partnership, the talent partnerships, but there are also some enterprises that search for those talents everywhere in the world. Then the low attractiveness for young people, and we have mentioned it. And we also said that we are facing the same challenges in Morocco or in Europe. So there is a community of needs, of challenges, and we need to take actions as a community to find the right means to tackle it. And then a growing migration of qualified workers towards foreign countries. And then we also feel that the COVID-19 pandemic still has impacts, and some operators in the field of tourism are still struggling after the COVID-19 crisis. So the challenges, so the working conditions are very demanding in terms of time, especially, and of schedule. Sometimes we don't have enough personnel. So the workers have to do different activities, and to do some overwork, and of course this has consequences in terms of burnout, and also in terms of boredom, and some irregular schedules as well. Then low remuneration compared to other sectors, or also compared to this, depending on the size of the enterprise. So we know that most of the enterprises in the tourism sectors are small and medium enterprises, and we know that sometimes they don't have enough personnel, and so these are the conditions. And then the lack of perspectives. So sometimes as I said, those are very small enterprises, so there is no visibility and there is no foresight in terms of career. And the seasonality, as I said, it is a structural challenge. The lack of support as well, and it feels like young people sometimes, in terms of support and mentoring and coaching, they don't manage to find the needed support for this mobility.
So sometimes the information is not available. Sometimes the process is too complex and too long. Other times, it is necessary to be on the floor because the information does not correspond to what is in fact found directly on the spot. And so it is important to institutionalize the process to make sure that there is visibility for these support and credibility, which is fundamental, both for EU and Moroccan partners. And so we see that recommendations are going to be launched in this sense. I am going to move on.
Excusez-moi. Alors, oui, c'était parti trop vite. Alors, je fais marche arrière.
So I will get back with the slides.
Pardon. Voilà, donc on était sur les défis conjoncturels.
So we are focusing on the challenges.
Ah, je reprends, excusez-moi.
Just a second.
Hicham, si tu veux, je peux partager mon écran avec ta présentation.
If you want, I can share my screen, and that's because I have the final version. I'm sorry, it's going to take a few seconds.
Alors peut-être, oui, monsieur Missoui, c'est pas vraiment un problème de son, mais
It is not really a problem of sound.
peut-être quelques petites minutes pour voir s'il y a déjà. Oui.
Can I take a few minutes?
Non.
Non.
Can you see my screen? No. No, we don't see the screen. But maybe if there are already comments or questions, we can go ahead with that.
On peut commencer à écouter.
Et
We
Hicham,
can-
si tu veux nous envoyer la version que tu étais en train de
Hicham,
projeter, on peut la projeter aussi.
we can also
Ça marche, désolé.
work with the presentation if you send it to us.
Donc maintenant, je vous invite, si vous avez
So if
des commentaires ou des
you have
questions aussi à
comments or
partir
questions,
de la présentation
I
qui a été
invite
déjà
you to
partagée,
go ahead if you have any comments or
utilisez cette occasion
questions on
prendre la parole ou
the
écrire dans le
parts
chat
that we have presented so far. You can write down your questions or comments in
prendre
the
votre
chat.
commentaire ou votre question. S'il y a déjà des réactions
So if there are reactions already.
à la première partie de la présentation.
So for the first part of the presentation.
Oui, Myriam.
Jehan, je suis en train de t'envoyer la présentation.
Parfait.
I'm sharing the presentation.
Merci. Effectivement, le temps peut-être que Hicham puisse régler le problème avec sa présentation. Je pense que sur
I
certains
believe that
des points qui ont été mentionnés,
on
ça serait
some
aussi
of the
intéressant
points that
d'entendre
have been
également les
mentioned, it would
participants
be
par rapport à cela.
interesting to
C'est notamment
involve
tous
the
les défis
participants on
effectivement
that. It's all
conjoncturels
the
qui ont été
challenges
soulevés par
that
par
have
Hicham.
been
Et
highlighted by
notamment un
Isham,
point qui est, je
and
pense,
in
assez
particular,
intéressant à
a point
soulever.
that is quite
Lorsqu'on parle
interesting
notamment
to
du
point out when
secteur
we
privé
talk
lié au
about the
tourisme,
private
c'est
sector
la
related to
présence très
tourism.
importante aussi de
Is
petites
a very
et moyennes
important
entreprises et
presence
de,
of
on
small,
va dire, de structures
medium-sized
familiales.
enterprises
Et donc, effectivement, je pense que,
and family-run
notamment dans toute
businesses.
la question de la mobilité,
So
c'est de
all
comprendre
the
aussi
issue of
comment
mobility
arriver à répondre aux besoins de
is
ces
how
petites
to
structures.
understand
Puisque
is to understand how to meet these
il n'est
needs.
peut-être pas aussi facile
It might not
pour
be
un propriétaire
for
d'hôtel
a hotel
géré
owner,
par une famille ou avec un nombre
a hotel
limité
that is run
d'employés,
by a family with a
d'arriver
limited number of
à suivre
employees
potentiellement
to
toute la question liée au
be able
recrutement de
to
travailleurs
follow
étrangers,
the
comme ça peut l'être peut-être pour un grand groupe
recruitment
qui ne serait
process from abroad, like it would
comme
be for a
hôtel,
large group, like a
Accor,
large
Sofitel,
hotel
Club Med
chain, like
aussi, qui ont été
Sofitel,
certains des
Accor,
exemples notamment mentionnés dans les différents
the
webinaires. Et je
examples
pense que cette
mentioned in the
question-là,
different webinars. And I believe
effectivement, de quel est le secteur
this
privé, quelles sont
point,
aussi les entreprises
and also
connaissant un
understanding
besoin important de main-d'œuvre et qui, du fait du manque de
this
main-d'œuvre,
need
risquent de fermer.
and those who
C'est à
lack
prendre en considération dans les
labor
réponses,
force run the risk of shutting down. And so it's important to consider these points.
Merci, Myriam.
Thank you very much, Miriam.
La présentation est maintenant.
I see that
Ça marche?
the presentation is working now, Isham.
Parfait.
Very well.
Alors, désolé pour ce malencontreux événement. Ce qu'on appelle
So,
dans le milieu journalistique, c'est les aléas du direct.
sorry about that. So,
tiendrai pas rigueur. Alors, je
so
continue.
that's,
Donc, on était sur les défis
and we're going to continue on the economic challenges. So we're not there by chance. There is a real need of a partnership.
À travers lequel le Maroc entérine ce statut de partenaire sûr et fiable pour l'Union européenne.
And it is important to reach a safe and sure and reliable partnership for the EU. It is Madame de la Marti that said that clearly. You know that it is in fact the French President Emmanuel Macron who said that Morocco is a reliable and sure partner for talent. But it is important to rely on a triple win for Morocco, for the EU, and for the people concerned in the tourist sector in both regions. So it is not a zero sum. So it was Mr. Dutu, which is the joint ambassador, deputy ambassador of the EU in Morocco, and expressly said that we are all within a positive cooperation, and we need to understand that Morocco, on the one hand, so the possibility of having this performance in the sector of tourism. So,
Monsieur Socrati l'a dit aussi.
And also Mr. Socrates said that we can reach that only if we find responses in terms of qualification and competencies in partnership with the different partners. And also the possibility
des mesures d'accompagnement aussi. Il faut garder à l'esprit que pour justement arriver à atteindre les objectifs escomptés, il est fondamental que nous travaillions ensemble justement pour pouvoir
fundamental to work together.
De la façon la plus décente possible, de la façon la plus structurée.
Fundamental to work together in order to build the partnership for all talents and to be institutionalized.
La philosophie de base.
So what is the basic philosophy that contributes to clear competencies and its alignment to European standard and acknowledgement? This talent partnership make us understand that several elements come from the informal sector that suffers from the existence of the informal sector. Many young people work in tourism and they might find themselves in a difficult position. And so it is difficult to rely on this experience. And then having the possibility of being recruited is not always easy. And so it is important to have an alignment with the international standards and to have the informal sector turning to formality. So it is important to boost the mobility of Moroccan talents in the observance of international standards and decent work. It is important to institutionalize and to regulate these sectors, so to do that within the rules and also considering decent work, green skills, new skills, technological skills, environmental skills, fostering professional mobility. And this is fundamental in order to ensure the viability of these partnerships and promote legal corridors for migration. So every time the key, the leitmotif, the key word that is really to promote skills and to develop capacities to move on.
Alors, la slide suivante. Alors, double opportunité pour le Maroc.
So a twofold opportunity for Morocco
pour l'Union européenne.
and also for the EU and Morocco.
Tout d'abord, renforcer l'employabilité.
First of all, reinforce employability.
Employabilité dit upskilling, dit aussi reskilling.
So upskilling and reskilling. We have seen that seasonality, precariousness.
De polyvalence font qu'il est nécessaire effectivement de trouver les moyens.
It is important to find the means to develop these skills for young people and women in this sector, because these two groups are particularly affected by unemployment.
Les viviers de précarité dans le secteur. Alors, renforcer l'employabilité.
The precarity in this sector, reinforce employability, and developing competent and certified skills to respond to the needs of the market and respond to the needs. So I speak about a twofold opportunity, but there are not many things changing between two slides, so between opportunities for the EU and Morocco. So I've spoken about the availability of Moroccan workers. Mobility has to be a lever for structural transformation.
Résoudre des problématiques à caractère
and in order
conjoncturel,
to solve
d'apporter des réponses conjoncturelles.
economic problems. And therefore, it is fundamental that we can articulate these problems. And in fact, this is the objective of this talent partnership. It is deploying mechanisms enabling us to deploy these talents not only for a season, and enabling to all stakeholders to be part of a process that is rooted and facilitate these mobility pathways. So a key phase. There is an interruption in the connection. Okay, on the 28th of May, it started with the European partners. And on the 25th of September, we explored the reasons at the basis of this partnership. So we met in Rabat and at THAMM for the consolidation. And now it is important that we can validate and operationalize these roadmap. So I'm moving on to another aspect that I presented at the beginning. It is about the methodology that has been adopted. So this is in order to explore these key actions and the challenges. So what is important is to analyze why we have identified these themes, why these challenges, and what are the key actions to be carried out. You see, there are actions in the medium, short, and long term.
Alors, les thématiques sont les suivantes.
So the themes are the following ones. I'm talking about verticality to identify key actions, and then the horizontal aspect concerning the recognition by sector such as ESCO. So that is a reference point that should be common, and getting aligned to this reference point and create this alignment that is necessary for mutual recognition. And then the condition of work and mobility in the sector of tourism, that's the second theme. And third theme is the operationalization of international mobility in the sector of tourism. This enables us to tackle the difficulties, deploy mitigation instruments in order to move on and find the necessary responses, and every time to adjust our actions. And then the methodology. So during the meetings, we worked by groups, and we analyzed different aspects, the key challenges, the actors involved on the Moroccan and EU side, the key elements of mobility scheme, the key actions, the key and involved stakeholders, and the agenda, the timeline.
Très généreux effectivement dans les travaux des groupes. Je me suis limité à deux éléments tout de
so
suite.
I limited to a few elements that are identified, so key challenges and key actions. So the main risks and mitigation measures. I believe it would be interesting to open up the debate on these.
Les participants et les participantes au FNT
because the participants
libérés, on va dire, de toute contrainte, de toute censure, on va dire, pour laisser libre
were free to express
à leur imagination, à leur proposition.
Their point of view, their creativity, their imagination, and now to be practical. And I will use the word previously used by Mr. Socrati in order to be practical and so analyze what is feasible. So the challenges identified. First of all, lack of recognition of jobs, because maybe they are not documented. Maybe they do not correspond to what is done in Europe. You might be experienced in a certain job, but this might not have value in the EU. And so, in fact, there might not be lots of interest for the EU. And so it is important to consider these aspects as a problem to be tackled. And then complex governance and institutional fragmentation. You have several sectors that belong to different ministries. For example, in Morocco, you have the Ministry of Vocational Training. You have the Ministry of Tourism. You have a lot of structures, and this creates a fragmentation. And so it was judged
la réguler de façon plus agile et plus flexible. Et du côté européen,
they should be run in a more agile way. And on the European side, the procedures are complex, and certain elements, certain areas are quite complex.
Depuis toujours, on a la vision, et d'ailleurs, ça a été corroboré aussi par la réflexion de
this point of view, this vision, and this was strengthened by the point of view of Mr. Bentahar, president of the National Confederation for Tourism. And it was considered as not the choice, but I would say in terms of orientation for tourism.
Encore, je reprends l'expression du professeur Mohtaj, assez souvent c'est par convocation, on n'est pas là par vocation.
And often this path is not taken by vocation, and it can be a will to have a career guidance in the sector of tourism. So the nomenclature ESCO is quite pertinent, and it would be interesting to adopt it, especially for the Moroccan side. So need of convergence and coordination, public-private partnership. We all need to agree on that. Lack of intersectoral dialogue, this is what we were saying. and often these is a lack of communication, so it should not be silenced. Importance of a participatory approach in the definition of reference points and the need of a dialogue to be diversified and participatory democracy. What is carried out in terms of adaptation in harmonization with the institutions and with all stakeholders.
And then the need to align technical training with real market needs. Concerning the key actions, well, harmonized to the national nomenclature according to EMN and REC, and link it to the European ESCO framework. So we really went into the details to say that there are some nomenclature that have to be updated. So we need to make an effort for this. Then there is also a nomenclature of ESCO. So we also need to identify the needs with KPIs, so key performance indicators, in order to know what we want to have in terms of training and for what types of skills, what needs. And there is also the need to contextualize based on the needs here in Morocco, but also with European partners, identify specific needs concerning the territories. So we can no longer have general solutions. We need to contextualize, we need to go at the smaller scale, at the local level, so that the training corresponds to the needs of the territory. Then set up a co-diploma and apprenticeship scheme prior to mobility. So in order to make sure that ETF is the main partner in order to have the homologation procedure, and also in order to have an alignment with the standards. Then define a clear training and certification process, promote the validation of what has been learned. And this is related to what we said earlier regarding the informal sector. And then create a joint monitoring committee. So this is related to the objective of providing the right coordination, the right support, in order not to harm the project and its success. So to really support and monitor the process. Organize a meeting between training centers in Morocco and Europe to set up a round table for networking. Then prioritize pilot jobs. So, and pilot occupations. And then the key actions, implement a dual qualitative and quantitative approach. So finding the needs of each sector.
Hicham, est-ce que tu m'entends? Parce que de notre côté, on t'entend
Well,
plus.
Hicham, can you hear us? Because we can no longer hear you. Then develop short and targeting training courses tailored to young people and seasonal jobs. Integrate AI into training programs. So we really want to be updated concerning what works best. So I think that AI has become the game changer in the tourism sector, be it in the restaurant sector or in the hotel sector. So we really need to reassure people, saying that AI will not substitute job, but that AI will make sure that we get rid of the tasks that are too that take too much time in order to dedicate to ourselves to the transversal skills and green skills, digital skills, communication and customer service skills. Then set up the training of trainers program. So this is a pillar in the actions that were identified. So it is important to have an alignment, but it's important that we have the trainers that can do it locally in Morocco with the partners. This would be even better in order to satisfy the needs of the curricula and of the didactic objectives identified by ETF and ESCO, then promoting a collaborative approach between institutions, companies and trainers, using the European qualification framework concepts to harmonize programs, because in this way we can create a real harmonization. Then the second theme on working conditions. So the challenges that have been identified. So first of all, the informal employment. So when we look at what is happening in Morocco, we talk about 70% of informal activities in the economic framework. So the idea is to find the means to contain this informal sector and give more opportunities to the formal sectors, so that young and women can have more opportunities in the formal sectors, as well as the portability of rights in the European continent. Then recruitment scams and fraudulent employers. So sometimes there are fake recruitment or some fake announces. So then the non-recognition of qualification. This is something that was mentioned as well. Then the lack of supervision and support for migrant workers. So there is a need to guarantee a framework to benefit from these partnership, from this talent partnership, and to make sure that the triple win really makes sense and becomes practical. Then an attractive salaries. Sometimes the salary of those who are on a mobility pathway are different from those who work at the local level. And this has been identified as a challenge to tackle. Then the arduous nature of jobs and the lack of ongoing training, of continuous training. Well, of course, training is not mandatory, so enterprises can benefit from
the professional tax that they pay to the state, but there are also opportunities for specific vocational training in order to obtain some reimbursement between 70% to 80% for the training plan. And many enterprises do not choose this type of continuous and ongoing training, maybe sometimes for administration reasons, for delays in reimbursement, or sometimes some people that were trained and that leave just after the training. And as we said, the enterprises sometimes are very small enterprises, so it is not always easy to train people. Then gender inequality, difficulty reconciling work and personal life, mismatch between qualifications and specific needs in host countries. And so the needs that were mapped, defined in a precise way. So this is something that has to be done so that we can manage to do the matching between the trainings in Morocco that we want to align and that must be aligned with ESCO and with the needs of the European countries. And so then the seasonality is another challenge identified. Difficulty applying the labor code, low attractiveness of the sector for young people, lack of social security cover, difficult access to healthcare. So now there is a project concerning the social security, social protection, so that everyone will benefit from social protection. But the colleagues that mentioned this challenge said that it is important to make sure that workers are also covered and have access to healthcare when they are abroad. Then the lack of representation of immigrants in trade unions in host countries. So the work of trade union is necessary, and I congratulate them for the work. And we met colleagues from trade unions that had many suggestions, that did many suggestions, and I think that this suggestion comes from them. Then the working conditions. Let's see now the key actions: sign bilateral agreements between Morocco and EU partner countries. So shall we do it through institutions between Morocco and the EU in order to have an umbrella? So this is a suggestion, and I restituted this as it was, but we can debate it. Should it be one-to-one? And I think that we can take time to discuss this. Speed up the standardization of mobility procedures, ensure the availability of information in tourism training establishments, make sure that information is updated, and maybe should the information be in the local language? Make applicants aware of the principles of the Moroccan and EU labor codes, and we will discuss it later, because some colleagues also suggested that in the curricula and in the training modules we integrate a module on the EU labor code so that mobility candidates are aware of the EU labor codes compared to that of their country. and then accompany and support this with training concerning the social, cultural practices in the host country. So include a European labor law module in tourism training courses, strengthen permanent social dialogue, strengthen the public-private partnership with the public employment services for mobility, production and dissemination to European and Moroccan employers of a toolkit presenting the mobility guide that gathers all the information for candidates for mobility and also for the institutional communication concerning this mobility. So we need to think altogether about this toolkit, about this mobility guide, then take care of workers from start to finish before their departure, as soon as they arrive on European soil and for their return to Morocco, leveraging digitalization and AI to facilitate the process in terms of information, in terms of assessment of applications. So having some assessment centers. So for instance, you have candidates in the sector of restaurants with a curricula that is justified, but the European recruiters expect to have the possibility to check what is on the curricula through a practical experience. So they cannot end for this process to be done from from the beginning to the end before being able to access this. So we need to find ways in Morocco to have assessment of candidates in Morocco, and there will be a recommendation. There was a suggestion to organize a job day between European recruiters and Moroccan candidates and the young people interested in mobility. And this could be the right space for assessment tests and assessment centers on site to check the competencies and qualifications. So it is important to check the competencies, but if necessary, it is important to have the possibility to check on site beyond qualification and certification, but maybe with assessment centers. I think it would be useful. Then the third theme, operationalizing international mobility in the tourism sector. So the challenges identified are the complexity of mobility procedures, difficulty of integration in the host country. So, of course, we talked about mobility for certain types of contract. So for a fixed-term contract, and the question of the integration in the host country, and we've talked about it with Séverine Diallo, our colleague, and she presented the case of the welcome centers in order to welcome the workers, the Moroccan workers, and in partnership with the Moroccan diaspora and with cultural centers. So then a clear definition of working conditions. This has been identified as a challenge.
voyez, encore une fois, on est de l'univers de la gestion des ressources humaines,
in
de
order
la
to
gestion
build
des talents.
loyalty,
Donc, il s'agit
to
en effet d'être
manage
vigilant par
talent,
rapport à cela, formalisation des engagements des parties prenantes.
then
Ça,
the
c'est important,
formalization of
en tout cas, cela
stakeholders'
peut être dit,
commitments.
pour
This is
que
important
l'engagement soit ferme,
to
pour
make
que
sure
l'engagement
that there
soit
is a
clair,
clear
pour que
commitment
l'engagement soit durable. Il ne
and
s'agit
a
pas de se
sustainable
rétracter, il
commitment.
s'agit bien entendu d'alléger
So,
ce
of
lourd par
course, it is
rapport à ce
important
processus
to
et il n'y a pas de raison de faire
go
marche arrière
until
parce
the end of this
que on est en train de
process
construire des
because we are
réponses stratégiques, des
building
réponses structurelles
strategic and structural
ceci nécessite
answers.
effectivement à ce qu'on se
And of
projette et à
course,
ce qu'on construise dans la
it is
durée.
important
Alors,
to
accès à
build in a
l'information
sustainable
sur les
way.
opportunités
Then
de formation
access
des
to
parties prenantes, oui,
information
ça
on
aussi a
opportunities,
été identifié
training
comme
and
étant
career
un axe
pathways.
sur lequel il faut
So this
agir.
has been
Différences culturelles et
identified as a
linguistiques
concrete
freinant
measure.
l'intégration des pays d'accueil.
Cultural and
Alors, ça a
linguistic
été présenté
differences
comme ça.
hampering integration
C'est pour ça
in the
que
host country.
une des actions clés, effectivement, c'est
So one of
accompagnement
the key
culturel,
actions
linguistique,
is to have this cultural
on est
and
tous d'accord
linguistic
là-dessus.
support, and we
Parfois, vous
all
avez
agree
un
on
candidat, une
that.
candidate qui est très
Sometimes there
valable
is a
et
candidate
faute de
with
maîtrise
high
effectivement de la langue, de
skills,
compréhension de
but
la
that
langue,
does
de
not understand the
communication
language and
socio-verbale,
who is
bah,
not able
assez
to
souvent,
communicate. And of
on tombe
course,
dans le stigma, on tombe dans la perception de,
then
passez-moi l'expression, de médiocrité, alors que
there
peut-être
is a
c'est juste un
stigma
handicap de langue qui a fait que la
that is
perception derrière
being
était
built,
négative. Alors, besoin
and
d'harmonisation
a
des standards
stigma of
d'information, de sécurité
mediocrity,
sociale,
but
portabilité des droits.
which is only
Oui.
related to the
Information, parce que
language
portabilité des droits, parce que
issues. Then the need
vous
to
avez des droits, vous
harmonize
avez,
training and
cette
social
sécurité
security
sociale, vous partez
standards,
en Europe
the
pour une
portability
période
of workers'
déterminée parce que c'est
rights,
validé. Vous revenez chez vous au Maroc, bah, il
because
faut
when you
que vous conserviez
go
vos
back
droits,
to
quoi.
your
Et donc,
country,
ça
your
aussi,
rights have to be
c'était considéré
maintained.
comme étant un élément
And
clé
this has been
justement pour assurer le
identified as a
candidat à la
key
mobilité. Alors,
factor
information sur
to
les conditions de
guarantee
travail,
the
information
mobility
mobilité sur
of
le territoire,
candidate,
contrôle des offres et éviter les
information
lieux
on
fictifs,
working
les offres
conditions
frauduleuses dont je parlais
abroad,
tout à l'heure, et
informing and
évaluation
mobilizing
des
EU
candidatures par
employers,
approbation.
checking
Donc,
offers
je
to
disais,
avoid
pour
bogus
l'opérationnalisation de la
offers.
mobilité, donc les modalités de sélection et d'entretien,
So
s'assurer
then
effectivement
effective
la possibilité
evaluation
de le
of
faire et
applications
aussi
before
s'assurer de la
approval
gestion de ces tests techniques effectivement dont
and
j'ai parlé tout à l'heure.
cost of
Alors,
technical
dernier
tests.
élément dans cette thématique
So the
3,
last element
donc,
for
la
the third
proposition est déjà
theme,
tout à l'heure, organiser un job day, donc un roadshow,
organize
et c'est
job
très important en
days
termes de
or
communication, en
road
termes de
show, which
présence,
is very
en termes
important
d'effectivité.
in
Évidemment,
terms of
moi j'adhère parfaitement à
effectiveness
cette
and
idée,
of
d'ailleurs, on en
communication.
a
And
parlé
I
avec
really
Myriam,
agree with this idea, and we've talked
un
about
job
this
day,
with
ou des job days,
Miriam. So
c'est un point
organizing
complémentaire.
job days in
Rien
order to
ne remplace
create
le
a
contact
direct
direct, le
contact,
contact
because
physique direct
nothing can
entre
replace the
établissements
direct
européens,
contact
entre centres de formation,
between
ESFO, l'ISI, l'EFPPT, l'ECMC. Je
European
crois que ça serait une
training
véritable offre
centers,
qui
between
pas
hotel
effectivement
and catering training
dont
establishments.
l'effet n'est
So
pas négligeable. Je crois qu'il
this
est
is something
même
that really needs
salutaire
to be
et
taken into
indispensable justement
consideration,
pour donner du sens à
and
ce
that is
rapprochement
necessary
entre les
uh,
établissements de
to
formation
make
de
sure
part et d'autre,
that
mais aussi entre
there
les
is a
recruteurs
contact
européens
between
et
recruiters, European
les établissements de formation
recruiters,
marocains. Alors,
and
renforcer les
training
dispositifs
establishments
d'accompagnement,
in
de contrôle,
Morocco. Then
d'assistance. Alors,
strengthening the
encore une
support,
fois,
monitoring,
ça
and
c'est une proposition,
assistance
mais avec le recul, on peut pas
mechanisms.
interférer effectivement dans ce que font
So
les
of
ambassades, les
course,
consuls,
we cannot
etc. L'idée c'est
interfere
que
with
soyons force de
the
proposition, que
embassies,
que le
but
processus
we need to make
accompagne autant que faire
suggestions
se peut
so that
et
this
s'assure
process
qu'il
is
de la bonne conduite
supported
du processus.
in order to make sure
Et je
that it is
soumets à votre
also
réflexion
monitored.
cette question parce que ça a été
And
largement
of course,
discuté.
this
Est-ce
has been
que dans
discussed.
la feuille de route, il faut
And
préciser
shall we precise
expressément
in
qu'il
the
doit y avoir
roadmap
un
that it is
dispositif
important to
effectivement
have a
d'accompagnement
mechanism,
pour
a
obtenir les
support
visas?
mechanism
Je crois
to
que
obtain visas?
ça mérite effectivement
I think that this
réfléchisse
is
avant
something that
effectivement
needs to be
d'introduire
discussed
cet élément effectivement
before we
dans la feuille de route.
introduce
Alors,
this
quelle
element
proposition?
in
Ça
the
aussi,
roadmap.
c'est
Then
à examiner de
creating
près. Alors, la coordination est
a
indispensable.
joint
Est-ce que ça
committee
justifie qu'on crée une
to
commission
monitor
mixte ou pas? Moi,
bilateral
je restitue effectivement
mobility
l'idée,
agreement.
mais on pourrait réfléchir ensemble
So
sur
we
sa
could think
faisabilité
about it
et
together
son
concerning the
caractère
feasibility
opérationnel. Alors,
and
faciliter les
the
procédures
operationality.
pour accélérer.
Then
Alors, faciliter les
facilitate
procédures autant
procedures to
pour
speed them up
partir
So in order to, when you leave the country, but also to reintegrate in the country, because Aurelia animated this group when we discussed about the regional investment centers that offer possibilities and also bonuses for sectors and for territories in order to support foreign investors and also Moroccan investors who want to come back in Morocco. And this is the type of return on investment that we are expecting, so that those who come back and who set up in Morocco, it is important that they invest. So sometimes maybe they can open a restaurant, an establishment, or think about a company for tourism transport, for instance. So it's important to have a return on investment and to have a phase before the mobility and also after the mobility.
Cette carotte, si je peux m'exprimer ainsi, justement derrière le processus de mobilité. Alors, renforcer la coordination entre
reinforce the coordination in order to better protect the working condition and ensuring support. So this is very important. So the intermediation, so there are in fact recruitment intermediaries. So this is in order to fight against frauds and lack of honesty, dishonest mediators, ensuring support once there is return upon Morocco, and set up a mobility observatory. This is interesting in order to collect data.
Les mouvements qui se font, les mobilités qui se font, les offres qui sont disponibles, les demandes.
So offers that are available, ensuring and monitoring and setting up a mobility observatory is therefore really interesting. So third point, so the stakeholders, so here it's about presence for the EU, for Morocco. So for the Moroccan part, the Ministry of Inclusion, Ministry of Higher Scientific Research, ANAPEC and IASIT, and there you go, all the different institutions, the regions. So regionalization is fundamental, take into account stakeholders and different institutions.
À cette feuille de route. Alors les partenaires sociaux, la CGM,
so social partners, CGM, and then you have the different employers, the workers' organizations, the federations and confederation for the sector. You have the tourism observatory, EGIAC for advice, CNT, FNT, the Federation of Travel Agents, National Federation of Tourist Restoration. I don't know if you remember, but when I asked the question as moderator of the event, I asked the question to the president of FNT about the available data on tourist restoration, and he told me that they had no data, and therefore it is clear that it is important to create an observatory in order to collect data, and data are the instrument in order to go on with the decision-making process based on evidence.
Alors, la société civile, ça, c'est
So
très
civil society, this
aussi.
is very
Les
important.
associations, c'est pour accompagner le processus. Et ça a
Associations
été dit tout
to
à l'heure par
support
notre
the
collègue
process.
Séverine Diallo,
This was mentioned
GIZ,
by
qui
our
nous-mêmes
colleague
ont
Severin
beaucoup
Diallo from
axé le
GIZ
travail en termes de suivi
Germany.
culturel, linguistique, en
It
concertation
is
et en
important
partenariat
to
avec les
work with
diverses
all the
diasporas et la
cultural,
société civile.
linguistic
Alors, voilà,
elements
on
in
rappelle les parties
harmonization.
prenantes, le ministère de l'Emploi, du
And
Tourisme,
then
les ambassades, les consulats, les SPE,
the
les
EU, we
représentations
have
des
all the
employeurs,
ministries, the
des
embassies,
secteurs
the
privés, les chambres
consulates,
de
the
commerce, les
representatives of the
fédérations, on a même
private
le
sector, the
BIBB,
confederation. We have all the different
parfois, on a
institutions
même jusqu'à sortir effectivement
in
le rapport qui a été
Germany,
publié par
Spain,
EFAT
France,
sur le
Italy,
secteur de l'hôtellerie
Portugal.
en Europe, EFAT,
We
les
have
fédérations
IFAD,
d'associations
we
professionnelles,
have the
les
Federation of
MIC,
Professional
les
Associations,
centres nationaux d'information sur la reconnaissance académique de langue
national
européenne, la
training
Commission européenne,
centers, European
DG
Commission,
Home, etc., etc.
DG
Tout ceci,
Home,
effectivement, constitue
all that
le corpus, effectivement, des
makes for
parties
the
prenantes qui
corpus
sont
of
de
the
nature à
stakeholders
accompagner chacun de
that
sa position, chacun vu le rôle qu'il joue pour pouvoir
have to take into
assurer
account
effectivement la
and see
crédibilité et
the
la viabilité
role
du processus
for
et bien
the
entendu
durability
avec
of
la
the
Fondation européenne pour la
process.
formation qui est le partenaire numéro un de la formation
And the EU
et de
that is, of
l'homologation
course,
également pour
the
cette
number
place.
one
La
partner
société
for
civile
the
aussi
standardization, so
développe
civil
un volet service
society.
culturel aussi,
We
ça
have
c'est un point en Allemagne,
cultural
sur le projet,
services.
où les centres culturels français, par exemple, peuvent jouer un rôle fondamental pour
So
accompagner
all
le
these
processus.
partners can really
Alors,
play a
participants
fundamental
supranationales,
role.
l'OIT bien
And
entendu,
then
GIZ,
the
les différentes agences.
stakeholders that
On a
are
vu
over
l'exemple avec
national. So we have
l'INPI,
seen,
donc
for example, the
Office français de
implementation agencies
l'intégration
such
et de
as the
l'immigration, avec
ILO,
l'exemple de
the
Club Med
GIZ,
qui est très très intéressant.
the
Et voilà, c'est pour justement donner
different
impulsion
institutions. So
là-dessus.
this is just to
Je
provide
finis
you
par la
with an
timeline.
idea. I conclude with the
Alors,
timeline.
comme je l'ai dit, j'ai essayé de restituer en 4 positions à très court terme, à court terme, à moyen terme et à long terme.
So we
À
have
très court terme,
different
création
priority
des conditions
axes. So
d'investissement.
from the
Il s'agit
short
effectivement
term to
qu'on
very
discute
short
de
term
sa
and the
faisabilité,
medium term and long term.
de la nécessité de l'avoir déjà, sous
So,
cette forme, ou faudrait-il penser à autre chose, mais en tout cas s'assurer de la coordination,
this
mais
is
ça doit
to
se faire
make
à
sure
très
that
court
we
terme.
have a
Communication institutionnelle
coordination,
sur le partenariat pour les talents.
institutional
Il faut
communication on
communiquer.
talent
Alors,
partnership. It is
quelque part, on
important
dit quand
to
on ne peut pas savoir faire, il faut
communicate.
le faire savoir. Ben, qu'il s'agit de communiquer là-dessus. Création d'un site internet officiel, une
So
application mobile pour
creation
diffuser
of
l'information.
an official internet
Et ça, c'est
site,
très important. Ce que je disais tout à l'heure
a
sur le
website,
toolkit,
and this is
ça
extremely
aussi, on peut
important,
l'inclure
what I was
dessus.
telling you
Alors, à
about
court terme,
the
organisation marocaine,
toolkit.
un discours de formation,
And then a
plutôt
short
ici en
term,
Europe,
the organization of
et
a
les partenaires
meeting
européens.
between
Organisation de
different
rencontres
institutions,
ANAPEC,
and
le
also a
service public
meeting with
d'emploi,
ANAPEC and the
le
public
comité de l'emploi.
employment services,
Organisation au Maroc d'un job
organization
day
in Morocco of
mobilité
a
à travers un
mobility
salon
job
ou
day through
vulgarisation et
a
promotion des
Salona
cadres
roadshow,
d'application ou veille de
and then
ANAPEC.
spreading and
On a eu une
promotion
démonstration
of
magistrale,
the
effectivement, de notre
application
collègue d'ANAPEC
of
sur
monitoring
l'application
of
veille, qu'est-ce qu'elle offre comme
and the
possibilité
application
pour
way of
détecter des
ANAPEC and what
besoins,
it
répondre aux
might
besoins
mean.
et avec des chiffres à l'appui. Et moi, je trouvais que c'était très, très intéressant et ça serait bien
And
effectivement
I
qu'on
believe
puisse
this would be
vulgariser,
very
promouvoir
important,
cette application
promoting
en
and
concertation, bien
spreading
entendu, avec
these
nos
applications.
homologues
And then
européens.
in the
Et
medium
puis, à moyen
time,
terme,
in the medium
harmonisation des
term,
curriculums,
harmonization
certifications,
of
cela
the
faut.
school
C'est un exercice
and
assez délicat pour
vocational
l'université
programs and
parce que c'est un exercice
certifications
qui
according
prend un
to
peu de temps. C'est pour ça
ESCO.
que je l'ai mis à moyen terme, mais dès le départ, il faut qu'on se mette
From
d'accord
the beginning,
sur
it is necessary to
une
agree
timeline pour mettre en place,
on a
sur la
timeline
modalité pour le faire.
on the
Mais véritablement, une
modalities,
harmonisation, ça ne peut se faire
and then
qu'en collaboration.
harmonization is
Alors, à long
certainly
terme, j'ai
fundamental.
pas mis grand-chose parce que c'est là, effectivement, au jour le débat. Si vous voyez des choses à caractère structurel, encore plus étalées dans le temps, qu'on pourrait envisager justement dans la feuille de route par rapport au long terme. Voilà, pour finir, je reprends
So
les
to
points clés
conclude,
de la feuille de route. renforcer la qualité des formations initiales et continues au Maroc, développer la certification des compétences et la reconnaissance
So developing certification with the EU,
favoriser un dialogue structuré, multidimensionnel,
then
multipartite
fostering structural dialogue, multidimensional and multi-stakeholder with all the institutions, and promote a more sustainable and inclusive tourism.
Et les compétences sociales. Voilà, désolé si j'ai pris beaucoup de temps, mais pour être honnête intellectuellement,
So I'm sorry it took long.
Ce qui a été proposé par nos collègues. J'espère avoir été fidèle, j'espère avoir été le plus proche possible de leurs attentes
So I
et de
hope
leurs
I
réflexions.
reflected all the observations and the path. Mickey, I will give you back the floor.
Merci
Thank
beaucoup,
you.
merci à
Thank you
toi,
very
Hicham, pour
much.
ta présentation assez claire, assez structurée de la feuille de route.
Thank you very much for this very clear presentation on the roadmap.
De toutes les parties et toutes les institutions et les partenaires. Alors, je voudrais juste revenir
So
sur
I
quelques
would like to get back on some elements
avant d'ouvrir le débat.
that emerged during
Alors,
the
c'était
chat.
effectivement Madame Nour
So it was Miss Noor.
donc une petite correction à toi, Hicham.
So a short correction.
Et aussi, on a vu dans le chat qu'effectivement, le ministère de l'Éducation a un rôle assez important à jouer. Donc, je voudrais
So the Ministry of
commencer par
Education has
donner
a
la
very
parole à
important
Monsieur
role to
Khalid
play.
Missoui,
So I
qui
would like to give the
présente,
floor to
qui
Ms.
représente
Khalid
aujourd'hui le ministre de
Wisi that
l'Éducation.
represents the Ministry of
Si vous voulez
Education.
peut-être partager votre commentaire aussi.
So if you can share your
les autres
comment.
participants, on vous écoute.
Oui, merci beaucoup.
Merci à vous.
So thank you very
De
much.
toute façon, je veux juste mettre l'accent et le point
I
sur
would just like to
notre participation. Il
highlight
faut que nous soyons
our
partie prenante.
participation. It is important for us to be
Je l'ai dit à plusieurs
stakeholders.
reprises, mais malheureusement,
I said that
à chaque fois, donc,
several times. So in
j'entends
fact,
pour les partenaires, mais malheureusement, il n'y a pas donc une indication sur la présence du ministère de l'Éducation nationale. Et pourtant, nous
so of
formons
course,
des
there is no
baccalauréats
indication on the
professionnels
presence
dans les
of the
métiers de
Ministry of
l'hôtellerie
National Education.
partout au Maroc.
However,
Et nous
we
formons
train
également des BTS
for
dans les métiers d'hôtellerie.
professional
Et les formateurs
diplomas
actuellement, les
and
professeurs
everywhere
du
in
ministère de l'Éducation
Morocco,
nationale
and the
sont
trainers
tous
and the Ministry of
agrégés,
National
donc
Education are all certified.
des compétences assez accentuées dans les métiers de l'hôtellerie aussi. Voilà, merci beaucoup.
So thank you very
Merci
much.
à vous. Merci pour
Thank
avoir
you very much.
précisé,
Thank you for having pointed this out.
effectivement, le rôle du
In
ministère de
fact, the
l'Éducation.
role of the
J'ai vu que dans le
Ministry
chat,
of
il y a pas mal
Education, I
de
saw that in the chat
qui ont
there
été postés
are
par
lots of
Anna Peck.
comments that
Donc,
have
je sais pas
been
si
posted by
Madame
Anna
Bensalem, si
Peck.
vous
I don't know
voulez
if it
aussi
is Ms.
prendre la
Bensalem.
parole très brièvement,
Madame
peut-être 5
Bensalem,
minutes,
you have 5
pour
minutes
résumer
to
les commentaires que vous avez
summarize.
donnés. Et puis, je vois qu'il y a une
And
main
then I
levée,
see
Katarina.
that
Donc, je vais
there is
passer
a raised
à
hand
Katarina
by
Strovis,
Katarina
après.
Strorova, and we will give her the floor afterwards.
Bonjour.
Bonjour à vous.
Good morning.
Oui, moi j'ai écrit dans le chat pour éviter de.
I wrote in the chat
Mais par contre, je vais
in
réagir
order
à la
not to take too much
réaction de
time.
notre
So
collègue du
concerning the
ministère de
reaction of
l'Éducation
our
nationale,
colleagues from
effectivement,
Ministry of
on ignore
Education, in
beaucoup de
fact,
ce que fait le ministère de l'Éducation nationale en matière de formation.
we
Donc
ignore a
là,
lot of
la
what is
question
carried out
de
by the
disposer
National
vraiment
Ministry of
d'une
Education. So
cartographie
here it is
de
important to have
l'ensemble
a
des
map
formations qui sont
of
délivrées, les
the
différents niveaux,
entire
tout
training
opérateur
paths that
confondu.
are
Donc ça, c'est très
delivered
important.
at
Et
the level of
j'ajouterais
all
également,
operators. And this would be
toujours
very
à
important to
à
have.
l'attention
And I
du
add
ministère de
to the
l'Éducation
attention of the
nationale, il n'y
Ministry
a
of
pas
National
beaucoup de
Education.
collaboration
We don't have
entre l'ANAPEC
lots of
et
collaboration between ANAPEC
je dirais les
and
chargés d'orientation.
those in charge of career guidance for the youth. And why is that? Because in fact, career guidance should made based on the employment opportunities of the market, of the trends of the market, in order to better guide the youth towards those sectors that have a high employment potential. And so, in my opinion, there is a possibility that is quite interesting to organize meetings and the presentation of a Veil Plus instrument and also the intervention of different guidance counselors. So in fact, the young people don't necessarily know about the trends of the labor market, and this is penalizing for them at the moment of the guidance. So maybe they take choices that are not in line with the labor market. And so I totally agree with what has been said. And so for international placement, but I believe this applies also on the national placement. And we're totally available for any exchange of information at all levels. And I will stop there. Otherwise, I totally agree with what has been presented. And I said the sector of restoration and hotels is certainly simpler than other sectors where the jobs have been regulated. There are placements that are made, recruitment that is made at the European level, starting from Morocco. So I believe it is not a new experience. It's a path that should rather be reinforced. And this as far as vocational training and training delivered at the level of different Moroccan stakeholders. This should be acknowledged from the beginning for the deployment of this type of mobility opportunities. Also, the national market certainly is very important for us because we are national operators, and so we need to find the right mechanisms in order to find the right mechanisms where training can be delivered quickly, and also providing job opportunities to those who don't have clear opportunities in a context where it's easy to deploy this type of schemes where there would be reconversion or recruitment of young people holding certificates and diplomas in order to have a stronger impact on the national market and also international market. I will stop there and I will keep on posting my comments on the chat. Thank you very much, Ms. Ben Salem. Thanks a lot. And before moving on with the colleagues who raised their hands, I would like to give the floor to the colleague from OFPPT who posted the comments under all the OFPPT. So, Mr. Hami, if you want to share your comment, you have the floor.
Et sinon,
otherwise,
Monsieur Rachid Ami, si vous voulez
Ms. Rachid Ami,
prendre la parole.
if you want to take the floor.
Voilà. On vous écoute.
We are ready to listen to you.
Mais il n'y a pas de son.
There's no sound.
Ok, donc voilà, Monsieur Ami, je n'arrive pas à vous entendre, donc
Mr. Hami, I cannot hear you.
Passez la parole aux collègues qui ont levé
So
la main
maybe
et après,
you can give the floor.
Si on a le temps, je peux peut-être revenir vers vous. Donc, Katharina.
Later on, so Katerina, you raised your hand. Yes, good morning and thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you. It's been very complete. It's been excellent to have all these suggestions presented. We hope we can have a document that is going to gather all the most important points. And it's really the result of this forum. I would like to comment on plenty of points, but not to take too much time. I will just focus on the proposals of the different mixed committees. First of all, we need to have a look at what already existed. So there is already a national observatory for migration and many things that are at the HCP level, HCP. And so before creating new structures, also on talent partnerships, we already have roundtables and a tight, but really tight cooperation. We meet almost every week with the main stakeholders, and we have projects such as THAMM Plus, on which we are working on today, and we have coordination structures. So we should not multiply. If we have a coordination structures, we should really find concrete aspects. Then I don't know about the training center or the portability of rights. We should not just create the structures for the sake of creating them. Well, that's my first point, and then we'll see where the discussion will turn us to. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll take a few comments, and then I will give the floor again to Hicham for the reactions.
Merci à tout le monde et merci Sam pour cette présentation. Oui, moi, mes deux petites
Thank you,
réactions
everyone, and thanks for this presentation. So I will just make a few comments. So, of course, there are many actions. We've seen many points. So maybe sometimes it is not too realistic. So we can see how we can decrease some action points. You also asked for a long-term vision, and we really talked about the update of the analytical nomenclature of occupation. So I think this is really a systemic work, a long-term work. Maybe it will take 2 years of work. And of course, we can support it in the framework of a broader project. And you have mentioned INTF in several actions. So thank you. Well, it means that you have hope and that you believe in us. And so, you know, we are really a partner. We support the delegation in the talent partnership, and we are not donors, so we cannot really implement big projects, but we were thinking about a short-term work that we can use. It is to use ESCO in order to identify competencies and skills gaps between Morocco and European countries, and maybe through the work with the OFTPP. This is something that we can do, and we can also use ESCO in order to update the NAP. So I will stop here, and then we can also write each other written comments. Well, thank you very much, Christine. And now I will give the floor to Mr. Sukrati, and then to you, Hicham, and then we have 3 other comments. So, Mr. Socrates, you have the floor. Well, thank you, Mickey. I also want to thank Mr. Hicham for the relevance and the clarity of his very important presentation.
Je veux réagir un peu
So I would like to comment the proposals of Hicham. I think that they are all true, and I will start from the axis of the roadmap and the 4 objectives that are very important. So the first one, strengthening the quality of training. Well, we we need
on
to
arriverons à un
take
moment où il y a une
actions
harmonisation pure et
towards
parfaite
the
entre les
perfect
compétences
harmonization
marocaines et
between
l'exigence de
Moroccan
l'Union
skills
européenne en
and
matière de
the
compétences et
needs of
travail.
the
Et cela,
European Union in
passe
terms of
essentiellement
skills.
par la question de
And this
développer la
can be done
certification des
through the
compétences
development
pour
of
qu'on puisse
certification of
parler sur le
skills
plan opérationnel de même
in
langage en
order
termes de
to
compétences et
speak
de
the
savoir-faire
same
sur le
language
terrain,
in terms of
et que
skills.
le
And
placement ou bien la mobilité
the
se passe
placement of
selon les règles de l'art
mobility,
et
so
qu'on
mobility
peut
has to
dépasser
be done in the
les
right
difficultés
way
que
and
M.
in
Hicham
order
vient
to
de les
overcome
citer.
the
C'est vrai,
challenges
donc avec
mentioned by Mr.
le développement
Isham.
des compétences,
Through the
on peut
development
dépasser
of
plusieurs
skills,
difficultés
we
en
can
termes d'opération
overcome
de l'action de la
several
mobilité. C'est vrai.
challenges in terms
Donc,
of
la question
mobility.
de dialogue, ça doit être continu,
So the
c'est vrai,
dialogue has
parce
to be a
qu'un projet
continuous
ne peut pas
dialogue
continuer si on n'a pas
because a
de
project
temps en
cannot
temps arrêté
continue
pour que
if
l'évaluation
sometimes we don't
établisse
stop
sur
to
les
do an
actions,
assessment
mais corriger
and
un
to
peu
talk about the
les
actions
pistes. Et
and
c'est
to
très
do
important.
some
Et pour la
adjustments. This is
question de
very
la
important.
promotion de tourisme
And then
durable et inclusif
concerning
depuis le
the
Maroc et l'Union
promotion of
européenne, donc c'est vrai,
sustainable and
ce sont des
inclusive
compétences
tourism,
que M. Hicham les a
this
qualifiées de
is
fortes.
true.
Alors,
We talk about
il
here,
reste une chose
we also
très
talk about
importante
the
aussi au
green
niveau des objectifs.
skills, but there is
Donc
also
c'est
another
vrai,
thing
tout ce que nous
concerning
avons
objectives.
prévu
So
comme axe, c'est très important, mais ça reste un peu la
the
question de la programmation en termes de
axes are
calendrier
very
qui est très, très
important, but
important.
we also need
Il
to
faut quand
think
même prendre en
about the
considération ce terme
schedule
de
and the
planification en termes de temps.
timetable.
Et aussi, il y a la question aussi très
And
importante.
we also
Donc,
need
si on
to
parle de
think
calendrier, de
about
mise en œuvre des différentes actions,
the
c'est pour le seul
so
objectif,
the
c'est bien sûr la
implementation
mobilité. Et quand on parle de
timetable,
la
it is
mobilité,
just to
il y a,
guarantee the mobility. And when
il
we
y a la
talk about
question de la mobilité
mobility,
et la
there is
question
also
on
the
parle directement
question
au placement
of
et au nombre de
placement.
placements et le besoin des entreprises,
So
exactement comment faire pour
the
identifier les
needs of
besoins
the
réels, pour qu'on
enterprises
puisse traduire les besoins
and how to
en termes
translate
de
those
personnel, en termes
needs in
d'agents
terms
qui
of
qui vont remplir
workforce,
ces postes de
in
travail
terms of
au niveau des unités de
operators
l'Europe.
to
Donc tout ça,
fulfill
c'est très important à
those
tenir en
jobs.
considération
So
dans
this
notre
is very
idée pour qu'on
important,
puisse
and we need to
parler
take it into
généralement
consideration
dans un
in the
projet
roadmap
intégré
in
en
order to
termes
have an integrated
des axes
project
et aussi en termes
in terms
des
of
actions
axes
opérationnelles, à
and
savoir
also in
l'installation,
terms
le
of
nombre des
operational
candidats formés, le nombre
actions.
de devront être
So the
placés,
number of
d'entrée, les
trained
procédures de
candidates, the
recrutement,
number of
etc. Tout ça,
placed
c'est très important à
candidates.
mettre en place dans
And
cette
so
feuille de
this
route
is very
pour qu'on
important
puisse
to
avoir
have
une
this
vision
in the
claire et
roadmap
nette
in order to have a
qui fait quoi
clear
et
vision
à
of
quel moment
who
et pour
does
quel
what,
objectif.
when,
Et c'est
and
très
for what
important. Je
purpose.
m'arrête là et je remercie
I will
Madame
stop
Mickey.
here and thank you, Mickey.
Merci, Monsieur Socrati. Donc, Hicham, je
Well,
viens vers
thank you,
toi
Mr.
pour quelques
Socrati.
réactions.
And Isham, do you have some
Merci beaucoup, Mickey. Merci à tous les
comments
collègues
to
qui
add?
ont
Well, thank you,
suivi
Mickey, and thanks to all
avec
the
beaucoup d'attention
colleagues
la
that have
présentation. Je rapporte
followed
juste
my
un élément
presentation. I
fondamental, on va
just want
dire
to
un point d'orgue
uh,
et, dans la
mention
présentation, c'est que j'ai
again something
restitué
very
effectivement
important.
les propositions
It's
qui ont
that
été faites, les
I
discussions qui ont été
restituted
menées.
the discussions
Ça ne veut pas
and the
dire
main
forcément que je suis
points,
d'accord
but it
sur
doesn't
tous
mean
les
that
éléments,
I
mais
agree
j'essaie
with
effectivement
all the elements, but
rapporter
I've
quelques...
tried to
On les a
report them
notés
as
et
they
rapportés
have been
effectivement suite
mentioned
aux discussions. Alors,
after
la place du
and
ministère, et je remercie Monsieur
the
Missouri,
role of
justement,
the ministry, and I thank
et
Mr.
je vous rappelle
Missouri,
toujours de lui
and I will
dans le groupe.
always
Il
have
était
him
très engagé
in
effectivement dans la
mind
défense des intérêts
his
du ministère de
engagement
l'Éducation
in
nationale
the group
et il a tout à fait
and
raison
concerning the
de
role
le
of
faire.
the Ministry of National
Le ministère de
Education.
l'Éducation nationale,
So the
moi, j'en
Ministry of
suis
National
effectivement
Education, the
venu
Ministry of Education,
pratiquement sur le même
I
piédestal,
put it at the
peut-être
same
consulté comme
level
le
among
ministère
all the stakeholders, so
du
just as the
tourisme,
Ministry of
de
Tourism
l'artisanat et de l'économie
and
sociale
of
et solidaire.
craftsmanship
Je l'ai mis aussi
and
aux côtés du MIPEC pour dire que
with
le
the
ministre de
MIPEC
l'Éducation
as
nationale,
well.
il a un rôle
So the
à
Ministry of
jouer
Education
et il
has
n'y
a
a pas
clear
besoin
role,
effectivement de
has
revenir
a role
là-dessus
to
pour
play,
légitimer effectivement la
and
place, le
we do
rôle
not need
et
to
la valeur
insist
ajoutée que peut
on
apporter le ministère
its
de
role,
l'Éducation nationale là-dessus en
and
termes de
because we
compétences, en termes
already
de
know the
formation.
added
Donc,
value that it can bring in
on est
terms
d'accord
of
là-dessus. Alors, pour
skills.
la remarque
Concerning the
de,
comment
Cari-
of
de... Alors, après, c'était Katharina, pardon. Alors, Katharina,
Katarina,
vous avez tout à fait raison. Vous avez raison.
you're completely
Trop
right. because too many commissions kill commissions and create commissions with same roles and some commissions that might take too much energy and that might also be time intensive. So you are right, but this was a suggestion from colleague and I had to mention it, but it shows that stakeholders all together around the table can agree on what Mr. Socrates was saying. So who is who does what? So an observatory, according to me, is a way to create data, to create monitoring. And if the observatory is already operational, and that the idea to involve it more in what we do, it is something that is already here, but concerning the fact of adding a new observatory, I agree with Katarina, because if we have too many institutions doing the same thing, it's not a right thing. So, and thank you for this comment, Katarina. Then I will move to a comment from Christian. So yes, we've mentioned ETF. It's not only to be polite, it's because ETF is a clear stakeholder and I've never mentioned the question of funding, and in the roadmap we haven't talked about funding and how this will be allocated, because we know that this is crucial, but this is not a discussion that we can have here in this space. But this is something that could be aligned with a planning, a timetable, something more precise in terms of quality and quantity in order to have a roadmap with all the necessary elements in terms of support, of funding, of stakeholders, of objectives. So this is what we want to do, to engage all the stakeholders in order to have a roadmap able to operationalize and to give the visibility that is necessary for this project. Then what Christina said concerning the nomenclature, well, of course, it is a challenging job. And of course, we need to think in the long term, but it is important to start already to find the ways, so to find the support to reduce the skills gap that Christian was mentioning in order to have then the implementation of the nomenclature and the alignment with ESCO. So this is a work that will take a lot of effort and coordination between Morocco and the European Union. So this is what I had to say concerning the comments from my colleagues, whom I thank a lot. Well, thank you, Isham. I saw in the chat that Mr. Ami is having some technical issues, and so he just wanted to precise that the CNCs are doing what they do what they can, and that the CMC is part, sorry, the CMC is part of the OFPPT. So thank you for this precision. And now I will leave the floor to Mr. Nejari, who has been very patient.
Pour partager aussi son commentaire. Merci, Monsieur Nejari.
So you can share with us now, Mr. Nejari. So good morning, everyone. I just wanted to react to two points mentioned in the theme number 2 concerning the key actions. So we mentioned bilateral agreements between Morocco and the European Union partners. And Morocco has concluded different agreements concerning the workforce. And we now have to implement those agreements. And with the countries involved in these talent partnerships, there are the 5 countries with which Morocco has concluded agreements. And concerning the international mobility, there is the creation of joint committees for the monitoring of agreements. And among those agreements, there is also the creation of joint committees, but I think that these agreements that were concluded need to be dynamized and implemented so that our project is successful, especially in order to reach the objective of these monitored talent mobility, so that Moroccan workers can have access to new opportunities and to develop their skills and improve their revenue. And so we shall all implement a clear mobility procedure with the involvement of all stakeholders so that this project is a success, and in order to build a sustainable mobility and a win-win-win mobility. So for stakeholders and also for people who take part to this meeting. So I will leave the floor now to Miriam and then to Aurelia. And I just want to let you know that I also would like to hear and to listen to the European partners if they have some comments and precisions to do. So Miriam, you have the floor. Well, thank you, Mickey. I will be quick because I'm aware of time. And as you've mentioned, it would be very interesting to listen to the state members, partners, who also participated to the webinars and to the forum in presence. So this was just something I wanted to raise, and this is also related to what Catherine said concerning the fact that we should not multiply existing structures or creating new initiatives that could overlap things that are already existing. So I think that this is just something that we should raise when defining the word map. And so it is important to talk about the consistency between mobility and between sectoral existing sectoral policies. And I think that having an integrated governance is important in order to, so compared to existing roadmaps, so in order to understand how to integrate the international mobility
Et je pense que
And
il
I
faudra, nous,
think
en faire un
that
travail assez
we
important
will
au
have
moment
to
de
do a
la
significant
finalisation de
work
cette feuille de
when
route, de
finalizing the
mettre en
roadmap
exergue notamment, ou
in
d'avoir en
order
fait
to
comme ligne
highlight
directrice cette,
and to
ce besoin
have
de
as a
cohérence.
guideline
Et
this need
ça, c'est un
for
point, je pense que
consistency.
nous devons
And
absolument
this is
garder,
something that we
garder à l'esprit.
really should bear
Un
in
autre point,
mind.
effectivement, mais je pense, oui,
And
comme l'a dit
another point,
comme l'a dit notamment Hicham,
as
il y a une question
mentioned
de faisabilité
Isham, there
qui
is
n'est pas
also
forcément
the question of
faisable sur du
feasibility
court ou du
because
moyen terme,
everything is
qui
not
n'est pas
feasible
forcément
on the short or
étudiable pour
long
l'instant.
term.
Il
Everything
s'agissait
is not
dans un premier temps
realistic. We
de
were
soumettre. Les
just
commentaires sont encore possibles de
submitting the
recevoir dans une
comments,
rentrée
and we
partie
can
prenante,
still
mais après
receive
aussi
comments from the different
d'évaluer la
stakeholders.
faisabilité de certaines
But we
actions
also
sur du
need
court
to
et du
assess
moyen
the
terme. Donc,
feasibility of
cohérence et faisabilité,
the
selon
actions
moi,
on
sont
the
à
short
prendre en
and
considération par la TAM.
middle term.
Merci Myriam.
Thank you very much, Myriam. Aurélia?
Merci Mickey, j'espère que vous m'entendez
Well,
bien.
thank you, Mickey. I hope that you can hear me
Merci
well.
à l'ensemble des parties
Thanks
prenantes.
to
Je
all the
suis ravie de
stakeholders. I
voir
am
le
very
nombre de
happy to see
participants,
the
près d'une
number
soixantaine de
of
personnes réunies ce
participants.
matin
So
et j'étais vraiment très heureuse
almost
de pouvoir rencontrer la
60%,
majeure partie d'entre vous en
60% participants
présentiel
this morning,
il y
and
a
I
une
was
semaine.
very happy to meet many
Donc,
of you 1 week
mon
ago
intervention
in presence.
est essentiellement
So I just wanted to
pour insister
say
sur, bon, il y a des
and to
choses qui ont déjà été
insist
dites, bien sûr,
on some
mais
things that
pour
were
insister
already
sur le
mentioned
fait que le
and
projet
to
THAMM
insist on the
Plus
fact
et
that
l'appui de
this
l'OIT
TAM
au
Plus
partenariat
project
pour
and
les
the
talents
support of the ILO to
est à
this
peu près à
talent
mi-parcours
partnership
et donc je
is
crois que comme d'autres,
halfway,
je vais
and
insister sur la
we
nécessité
should insist on
de se
the
focaliser
need
sur
to
des actions
focus on
opérationnalisables
operationable
dans un laps de temps
actions
raisonnable par rapport à la
in a
mise en œuvre, à la
reasonable
période de
time
mise en œuvre
frame.
d'exécution restante du projet.
Uh,
Donc,
so I
j'insisterai
think,
comme
and I really
d'autres sur
insist,
un
as
degré de
others did,
pragmatisme et
that
de
we need to
réalisme
be
nécessaire.
pragmatic and realistic.
Je me réjouis de la
I am very
richesse du
happy
travail et
about the
bravo
richness and
Hicham
about
pour
the
tout
work.
ce
So,
travail
and
de
also thank
synthèse
you,
et
Isham, for
d'analyse
this
que je trouve très
work
très
of
utile.
synthesis that you have done, which is
Deux,
very
trois points
useful.
ensuite peut-être plus
And
techniques.
then maybe something more
Par rapport à
technical
EDF
concerning
particulièrement parce que
ETF,
nous arrivons
and
à mi-parcours,
especially because we are
moi
at the
j'apprécie
half of
fortement
our
votre
pathway.
mobilisation
So I really
EDF
appreciate
sur
your
ces forums
mobilization
et votre
on the
présence.
forum and your presence.
Je pense que ce sera
I
important
think
qu'on essaye de
that it will be
clarifier et
important to
d'approfondir un petit peu
clarify and
par
to
rapport aux partenaires marocains
deepen
exactement ce qu'il sera possible
what is
d'envisager. Et
possible
Christine,
to
moi j'aimerais bien
think
avoir
about
voilà, une
concerning
idée un petit peu
the
plus claire.
Moroccan
Nous
partners.
avons en tant qu'OIT
So
également une capacité de
as an
backstopping sur
ILO,
les
we have a
questions
backstopping
de développement des
possibility
compétences
concerning the
et d'alignement
development of
sur les normes.
skills and the
Mais
alignment
évidemment,
to the standards.
l'idée
But
est
of course,
absolument d'être
we
en
want to
complémentarité le plus
have a
utilement possible vis-à-vis
complementarity
des partenaires des institutions
with the
marocaines. Donc, je
partners
crois que ce
of
sera très important là de
Moroccan
bien clarifier
institutions. So I think it
exactement
will be
ce
very
que l'on
important to
fait. J'ai bien
clarify what
compris que
we
vous
do.
vous
So
inscriviez
I
plutôt dans
understand
du
that you
plus moyen, voire long terme.
look at the
Ceci
middle
étant,
and
il y a un
long
projet TAM+,
term, but
qui est
I
là
think that
encore
there
pour
is, of course, the
deux
TAM
années.
Plus
Donc, on a
project for
quelques
another two
moyens et ces
years.
moyens, il
So
s'agit
we
bien
have some
de les mettre à
means
disposition
and
des
we
partenaires
want to
marocains.
make them
Donc,
available for
autant que
the
faire se
Moroccan
peut, essayons de
partners.
faire les choses
So
peut-être
let's
voilà,
try
en
to do
commençant par
things
des métiers
by
spécifiques
starting with
et une mise
specific
à niveau de la
jobs
nomenclature sur
and
des choses
also
qu'on
with
peut
the
envisager
update
sur
of
la
the
période qui reste et puis
nomenclature. So
ensuite,
things that we can do
voilà, de manière
for
plus
the time
stratégique
that we
sur
still
votre
have available in the
orientation
framework of
d'envisager les
the
choses de plus long
framework.
terme. Par rapport aux job fairs, je
Concerning
pense que
the
c'est quelque
job
chose qui
fairs,
a un
I
très
think
fort
this is something
potentiel.
that has a
Simplement, moi,
real
j'aimerais juste dire
potential,
que,
but
il doit y avoir
I think that
impérativement
first
une
of
très
all,
forte
it is very
mobilisation du
important to
secteur
have a
privé
strong
européen et nous, on
mobilization
est
of
prêt
the
à vraiment
European
mettre les
private sector,
bouchées doubles,
and we
comme
are
on dit,
willing
pour
to do what it takes in order to ensure this mobilization. But I think that this is also important in the name, on behalf of the ILO, to think about it with the fair recruitment in mind. So concerning the recruitment conditions, the conditions of access to the labor market, and we should not forget the representative of the sectoral federation of workers in order to know what's expecting the candidates with those jobs in the European market. And Miriam also talked about the consistency, and I really agree with her. And I would like to mention the fact that we have started again the work with the Ministry of Labor on the national strategy for international vocational mobility, and we hope that this will be should become practical by the end of 2025. So there is the role of catalyzing and the sectoral approaches. So this is planned in the strategy, and we wanted to say that there will be this tool as well, which is being finalized, and this dimension of consistency between the sectoral approaches and also the roadmap is something that would be at the core of the finalization of this national strategy for vocational mobility. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aurélia. Now I'm giving the floor to Mr. Bentahar.
Merci infiniment. Vous m'entendez?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Parfait. Bon, à mon tour de remercier donc tous ceux
So
qui
it's
ont
my turn
contribué
to
effectivement
thank
à nous
all
faire arriver à
those
cette étape parce
who
qu'on a
contributed
une restitution
to the reaching of this
exemplaire
point.
de CIFM qui a repris
In fact,
effectivement
we have
l'ensemble des thèmes et
a
l'ensemble des échanges. Je leur remercie
wonderful
pour ça.
reporting back on
Maintenant,
all
nous devons
these
passer
aspects
voilà,
by
de
Hicham,
l'inventaire
and he really gave us a
quelque part
complete
des attentes
overview
à l'exécution en priorisant les choses.
of
Alors, je
all
vais
the
présenter tout
expectations
simplement
and
le point de vue des
implementation.
professionnels. En tout cas,
And
nous,
so
notre rôle, c'est de vous faciliter
our
la vie.
role is
La
really to
Confédération nationale du tourisme, c'est la
facilitate
voix
life.
de
So
l'ensemble
the
des
National
entreprises
Confederation of
touristiques du
Tourism
Maroc.
is
La
the voice
Confédération,
of
c'est
all
rassemble
the
l'ensemble des
enterprises
fédérations
in the tourist sector of
que ça
Morocco.
soit lié au tourisme, que ce soit de
And
la
so
restauration, de
this
l'hôtellerie,
is
des agents, bref,
the
tous les métiers sont dedans.
federation
Notre rôle, c'est de vous
gathering
faciliter
all
la
the
vie et de vous
professions
exprimer
related to
clairement
tourism.
nos attentes. Donc, nous voulons réussir ce
So
projet
we
avec vous.
clearly
Et
are
notre
aimed
sujet, je l'ai
at
écrit sur le chat, je le
getting the
réitère,
best of this
nous n'avons
project
pas
with
besoin
you. And I really
d'institutions
highlight these as
supplémentaires. Nous
written.
n'avons
We
pas
do not need
besoin
further
de
institutions.
structures qui viennent
We
se
do not
rajouter, mais surtout
need
pas besoin de hard.
structures
Nous
to
avons
be
besoin de former
added
mieux.
in
C'est
this, but we
l'objectif-là,
need to
former mieux et former
train
plus. Et c'est
better
dans ce
and
cadre-là,
train more.
s'il y avait une attente que nous voulons formuler
So
aujourd'hui
this is
en
our
tant que
expectation
représentants
that we
de
wish
l'ensemble
to
des métiers,
express today as
de l'ensemble des fédérations,
representative
de l'ensemble des
of the
entreprises touristiques,
federations, of the
c'est de nous dire on a un
professions.
sujet, c'est que je sais qu'on a
So
beaucoup investi sur les
we
infrastructures en
invested
termes
a
de hub.
lot
On a
of
besoin de donner
infrastructures,
plus d'attention, de moyens
and
aux formateurs
now we need to
en
give
termes de
more
contenu, en
attention
termes
to
de
trainers
formation,
in terms of
pour qu'ils puissent former
content,
mieux
so that
et plus. Donc ça,
they
c'est
can better
l'attente
train
numéro un.
and
Et ce qui nous
train
rassure,
more.
c'est de voir ce point-là
So
comme
it is
une des
important to
priorités.
focus on this point
Deuxième
as
point,
a
on
priority.
vous invite
Secondly,
à travailler,
we
comme ça a été dit,
invite
sur
you to work,
deux
as it
métiers
has been
spécifiques
said, on
pour rentrer dans le
specific
vif et
jobs in
apprendre
order to
en faisant ensemble et en passant rapidement,
work
parce que je sais qu'il y a des objectifs et
together.
des
I know
attentes
there are
importantes
objectives and
des
important
deux côtés
expectations on
de
the
la Méditerranée
side
et
of
que
the
nous voulons travailler
Mediterranean,
sur des métiers
and that
pilotes.
we wish to
On
work on
choisit un ou deux
pilot
métiers pour
professions.
apprendre à
So we
collaborer, à
wish to
travailler ensemble, que ce
pick
soit
a couple,
public-privé du
because to
côté
start and work
marocain
together,
comme
be
du
it
côté
private
européen, et on
and
le fait autour de
public,
la table et on définit quels
Moroccan
sont
and
les
European,
objectifs
and define what are the
chiffrés et comment on peut
objectives in
accompagner
terms of figures
les
and
institutions de
how we can
formation au
support
Maroc
the
et les
training
fédérations
institutions
à former
in
plus
Morocco
et
and the
former mieux.
federations
Voilà pour
to
moi et merci
train
encore.
more and to train better. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bentahar. I see Maria has raised her hand.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Good morning,
So
everyone.
in Portugal, we also face a shortage of qualified workforce in tourism sector. We have good expectations that under the talent partnership umbrella, we will be able to develop fair and safe migration with mutual benefits. I agree with the presentation that was made today. As a conclusion of the work groups that took place in the forum 2 weeks ago, I would like also to share with you some experiences that we have in Portugal and that have already been mentioned. We have a social security agreement between Morocco and Portugal, which allows workers to keep their rights. This agreement has been on for several years, so for that part we are done. We also have a labor mobility agreement, which has enabled us to work closely with ANAPEC in validating job offers and publicizing them here in Morocco by ANAPEC, and also pre-selecting the candidates. So this work for us, it's also done. We also find that in Portugal, employers usually provide lodging for migrant workers, which is good for their when they arrive in Portugal, because in Portugal, lodging is a very big problem that makes it difficult for migrants. So it's also a good thing. And also we have free Portuguese courses available all over the country and also online, which also can help migrants to integrate better and to, even before going to Portugal, to learn Portuguese language. So at least for these 4 points, I think we have done some work already. We obviously we still have some work to do to finish the roadmap, but I think we have a good starting point. So, and some points are already done for us, as I said. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much for sharing the experience of Portugal. I see, je vois qu'il y a un autre main levée.
I see that there is another hand raised. Rahim, I give you the floor, and then I will get back to Hisham for the reactions. Thank you very much. I would like to interact with all these discussions, and in fact, it is true that at the level of the roadmap that has been presented for the courses and the points at the short and long term, maybe we can go on more concrete aspects, on concrete measures. So after this forum, what could come out of this forum that would enable us to focus on concrete actions? And I will join what Aurelia said, that could be already deployed in this framework. So I believe this is very important, and what has been presented is in fact the result of group work. But I believe that we should focus on concrete short-term actions that could last a year, 12 months, 2 years maximum. And I believe that we reflect, that it's important that we reflect on that, because this is one of the structures that would enable us to support the implementation of these measures. It is true that we do not talk about heavy structures for governance, but I would like to remind you, when we spoke about making reference to the first forum, we set up way back then a small group ad hoc that was made on purpose, and that was supported by the UMIAPEC as for running institution associated to the activities and to the measures that could be shared after the forum. So I believe it is important to reflect on that when we talk about structures and a working group made on purpose that can really gather all the stakeholders. So why is that? Because we need to deploy these measures European and Moroccan side, and that can work on that. I believe it is very important to start from concrete actions. And that would also ensure a follow-up of these measures.
Et après, peut-être la question aussi que
And
je voudrais
after
aussi
that, the question that we could tackle, it's the proposal to move toward concrete actions is to reflect on concrete measures as they are provided in THAMM Plus, and I would like to remain practical. So already deciding with our stakeholders who are there, and it is work that should be done on the sector in order to re-guide. But I'm talking about under the colleague of EFT. You were talking about the Veille Plus, the application, and we're already talking about the extension, this application in an international dimension. And I would like to finish with the last point that is very important to me. So as we want to shift to water mobility, shouldn't we consider the two ends? So it is vocational training and mobility that is supported by ANAPAC. I believe it is important to reach this connection. How do we shift from vocational training to train greenhouses of competencies in restoration? But also, how can we make sure that we have a passage, a shift? And this is at the heart of all this work of mobility. And if we skip that, we will always be within fragmented actions. And when I talk about mobility, I really talk about this work that is ensured by ANAPAC. And in terms of concrete measures, it is important to consider these interaction. Thank you very much. I will go back to Hicham.
Alors, écoutez, je suis très heureux de
I'm
voir
very glad
de réactions et
to see
qualité des réactions
these reactions.
Ce prétexte qui est la présentation que j'ai faite a suscité chez les uns et les
I'm
autres.
very glad that the presentation I delivered generated all these comments and reflections. Miriam said, Aurelia commented that, Miss Binta and Rahim. So keywords are consistency, feasibility, practicality, and priorities. So consistency.
Faisabilité pour s'assurer qu'on est réaliste dans la feuille de route et dans les actions
in order to not to be overlapping, feasibility to ensure that we achieve this roadmap in terms of actions, practicality related to the instruments allowed. And I do not necessarily mean financial means, but also human, logistics, and then priorities. Setting priorities by profession. And here we go back to the ideas suggested by the colleagues. So being punctual in terms of priorities and practicality. So Aurelia has also mentioned the opportunity to organize in terms of jobs. And so we really need to find the right link between training and the needs of the market, modalities or mobility. And so we need a committee set up on purpose, as we said. So would it be useful? I believe that would be the object of our discussions. So it's important that we are open to all proposals and also counter proposals. It is important that we speak together. We can define in a consensual way and in a practical way and all the priorities we should focus on. So this is my reaction to what has been said. So it is very important for all the institutions and APAC to work together, communicating, sharing, and focusing on joint actions where we can also find these digital structures. So when we say train more, train better, this is really in order to show the need of targeting the actions. So targeting would be another keyword. So pragmatism, feasibility, consistency, and priority setting. These are my words. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Isham, for your reactions. And if I may, Miki, last element concerning Maria, it is very interesting what she said. That would be in the spirit of benchmarking, where we see the good practices working here and there. And that's the interesting of repeating these good practices, these actions, these concrete actions.
Merci, merci Hicham, et
Thank
merci
you,
à
thank
toutes et à
you,
tous
thank you,
pour
Sham.
vos
Thank you all
contributions qui sont très riches,
for
très
this
enrichissantes
contribution that is very
et
rich.
Qui souligne effectivement un
And this
consensus
highlights
assez fort autour
a
des
very
trois
strong
axes
consensus
thématiques du
around
forum.
these axes
Donc,
of the forum.
pour passer effectivement
So
maintenant à
now,
la conclusion
to move on to
webinaire,
the conclusion of the
j'invite
webinar,
tout d'abord
I would
Monsieur
like to
Socrati à reprendre
invite
la parole
Mr.
pour
Socrati
partager
to
quelques
take
mots de
back the
clôture
floor.
au nom du MIEPEC. Donc, Monsieur Socrati,
Mr.
si vous
Socrati,
êtes là,
if you are there,
merci de partager votre
thank you for
message de clôture.
sharing
Et
your
merci
closing remark, and thanks a lot.
Merci, Madame Miki.
Thank you, Mickey.
Je vous remercie de me donner la parole justement pour
Thank you
mettre
for giving me the
un
floor
mot de clôture pour cette
for the
webinaire qui est très
closing
important.
remarks.
Donc, webinaire de suivi de
So
finalisation de
this
la feuille de
follow-up and
route nationale
finalization
de partenariat
webinar
pour les talents
of the
dans le secteur
partnership
du
for
tourisme.
talent in
Donc,
the sector
je
of
suis très
tourism.
ravi d'avoir
I am very
de
glad
participer d'abord
that I took
et
part
suivre un peu toutes les interventions ainsi que la réaction des
in
uns et des
these and
autres qui
all
étaient
following all
très
the
pertinents, très
interventions
fructueux.
and the comments, very
Merci au nom
pertinent,
de MIEPEC.
very fruitful.
Je représente tous mes remerciements, mes sincères remerciements pour
So
la
my
mobilisation et la
sincere
contribution des
thanks
uns et des autres
for
qui
the
ont été très
contributions
éclairés
of
lors de cet webinaire.
everyone
Ce
who
webinaire
took
qui
part in
marquait
this
une étape
webinar.
essentielle dans notre
So
parcours
this
collectif.
webinar set
Donc,
an
vraiment
important
clore
step
un
in
cycle
our collective
d'échanges.
path of
Après
our
les premiers
rich
webinaires, passant par les
exchange
différents
after the
forums
first
organisés sur le même
webinar and
sujet.
the forums organized
Et
with the
alors,
same subject.
qui était marqué avec un certain échange très riche de
So this
concertation
exchange was very rich. We
de
had
les différentes étapes de
harmonization
ce
of the different
processus
steps
de
of these
migration, de
process,
mobilité migratoire
focusing on
internationale.
labor
Et
migration
c'est à travers
and
ce projet
international
ce
mobility
projet de partenariat de talents.
and this
Donc,
project
grâce
of
à votre
talent partnership.
engagement,
So
nous
thank you
disposons
for your
désormais
engagement.
d'une feuille de
And
route
thanks to that, we
et
now
je
have
passerai
a roadmap.
sans dire un mot sur l'intervention de monsieur, notre ami Hicham, qui était très riche et très,
And
très fructueux.
the intervention of our friend
Mais
Isham was
aussi
very rich.
l'intervention des autres intervenants qui était aussi
And
très
also
important.
the comments of the
Donc,
other speakers have been
il
really
s'agit
interesting.
d'une proposition d'un projet de feuille de route qui est consolidé, validé, encore. On va voir pour la question de
So they
validation.
focus on a
Donc,
project of a
recevoir
roadmap that
par
is
écrit un peu sur ces
consolidated
questions-là
and
et qu'on va avoir
validated.
un projet de feuille de route qui a pris en considération
So
les
we
différentes remarques
We will have a roadmap taking into account all these different remarks and observations and proposals by the different participants. It will be a very well structured document with a strategic access and priority actions. So the works of these three groups, for them, we still want to thank all the participants in the group works leading to the roadmap. I would like to thank those who drafted this report. The document is not only the fruit, the result of a technical analysis, but an expression of a common will to act in a spirit of cooperation between Morocco and the European Union. The validation of this roadmap is not the end of the process, but represents the beginning of a new phase that will be fundamental. So everyone will try to do the best to reach these objectives that have been defined through this process. I would also like to remind you the continuous and joint participation of all the institutions to transform our orientation into concrete actions. We wish to create a reference framework on the harmonization and trust responsibility to be shared, and coordinate our efforts and to ensure our efforts for the durability of these actions. Thank you very much for your engagement, your spirit of collaboration, and I hope to join you soon and to see you soon to the next phase. Thank you very much, Mrs. Socrati. And I have the pleasure now to give the floor to Ms. Agnese Pantaleoni, representative of DG MENA of the European Commission. Now we're going to hear the European side. You have the floor, Ms. Agnese.
Thank you very much, dear participants, dear partners. We are reaching the end of this collective work, but I really want to thank our European and Moroccan partners from DG MENA, and we want to thank you for your constant engagement from the preparatory webinars to the forum in Rabat to today's webinars. This is thanks to your engagement that we have drafted this roadmap. We hope that this will translate in practical actions in the future, and during our discussions, as it has been highlighted in the first part of the webinar, some main points have been highlighted, such as the fact that the tourism sector is very dynamic, but is also impacted by many challenges, such as the skills, the working conditions, the precariousness of jobs, and you've worked with three themes, so development of the recognition of skills with practical proposals in order to harmonize the nomenclature, in order to strengthen the collaboration between the European Union and Morocco, and also the strengthening of private-public partnerships partnership, clear information on labor rights, and support social rights, as well as the international mobility with the creation of clear mechanisms, the creation of contacts, of direct contacts, the strengthening of support mechanisms, and the facilitation of procedures. So the THAMM project is part of this dynamic in the talent partnership. The THAMM program wants to be a catalyzer in order to strengthen the capacities of the North African partners, and also by developing legal migration pathways in line with the needs in skills from the both sides of the Mediterranean. And this engagement in the tourism sector is strategic because tourism, given its human dimension and its potential, is a lever for this win-win mobility model. So this forum is not the end, but I really hope it will become the beginning of a new action phase, and that now the roadmap that we have built has to translate into practical actions that take into consideration the key actions identified in the work groups for the three themes. And we really want to strengthen the training and certification mechanisms, as well as the mobility between Morocco and Europe, and finding together solutions to the challenges that were raised, be them technical, cultural, or social. And the European Commission as well will keep on supporting this process in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Pantaleoni. And now to conclude, I will invite Ms. Myriam Boudra to share her conclusions and to talk about the next steps of this process. Well, thank you very much, Miki. I'm aware of time. It's always difficult to be the last to take the floor, so I will try to be as quick as possible, because I think that many things have already been mentioned, and it is time now for us as ILO to do another work to gather all the comments and to come back with a roadmap, a revised roadmap to submit. And I wanted to highlight that today we are not talking about the validation of the roadmap, but the presentation of a version that is as much as possible the echo of the active discussions and of the co-building that took place in presence in Rabat. And so we still will take time to gather your comments. So from today to more or less the end of the next week, you are more than welcome to send us comments that are, according to you, necessary, and that we will share. And we will share the presentation made by Isham in order to add extra comments, even though we saw in the chat that there were already many many comments. So I really want to highlight and appreciate the active participation to the webinars from the first webinar to today. So we started the 28th of May. Today we are the 21st of October. And I want to thank all the stakeholders which from the beginning have had an active role. And today there were about 60 participants for this last step, which is potentially
qui attire le moins
the
potentiellement de personnes, mais on
step
voit
that is
notamment un noyau
less
dur qui
attractive, but
véritablement
we see
depuis
that
le
there
cours
is a
webinaire est
core
présent,
that
aussi bien de
is
parties
present from the
marocaines que
beginning
de parties européennes
of
dans toutes
these
nos éditions. On
webinars,
voit du coup
and
l'importance
we
et
notice the
l'engagement
importance and the engagement
notamment des différents acteurs pour
of
s'assurer
the
notamment de,
stakeholders to make
pour
sure
utiliser un terme, j'aurais pu compter le nombre de fois où le mot concret a été dit dans ce webinaire,
that
mais de
we
concrétiser et de rendre cette
make
feuille de
these
route
roadmap
vivante
practical
et réaliste
and
et réalisable.
alive and realistic.
J'aimerais effectivement
I
aussi
also would
souligner que
like
toutes les
to
informations qui
highlight
ont
that all
été
the
partagées, toutes les
information
présentations en ligne,
gathered,
les
all the
rapports des deux webinaires,
presentations, the
plus
reports
tard
of
aussi
the
le rapport
two first webinars,
du forum
and
seront
also later
disponibles
on the
sur
report of the
le
forum.
e-campus
All this will be
développé par le site de
available
formation
on
de l'OIT.
the e-campus
Merci
developed
de
by
partager l'écran. Donc vous
the
aurez accès, vous allez recevoir le lien
ILO
pour
Training Center,
notamment
and
avoir
you
accès
will
à
receive the
toutes les
link to have
informations qui ont
access to
été
all the
partagées et les
information
enregistrements aussi des
shared,
sessions
and
qui ont
as
été
well as the
faites
recordings
depuis
of
le
the
début.
sessions from the
Le
beginning.
matériel est disponible en français et en
The
anglais.
material is available in French and English, and this platform will remain active for
assez long.
a
Vous
long
avez, pour
time.
ceux qui ont participé déjà au
So
premier
for
forum
those
sur
who
le
participated
transport,
to the
c'est
first
une
forum
plateforme
on
similaire.
transport, will
Cette fois-ci,
you know that
effectivement,
this
sur le
platform
secteur du
is
tourisme.
quite similar, but this time
Toute
for the
l'information
tourism
sera
sector. So
disponible
all
et
the
restera
information will be
disponible
available and will remain
notamment
available
un temps assez long, au-delà même
for
de la
quite
durée
a
du
long
projet.
time, and
Nous
probably
mettrons aussi sur cette
during the whole
plateforme
project.
potentiellement des
And
lectures
on the
additionnelles
platform, we
qui
will
sont
also
importantes
make
pour avoir aussi une
available
meilleure
some
compréhension
important
du secteur.
documents to better understand the
Hicham avait
sector.
mentionné notamment
Isham also
une
mentioned
publication faite par
a
l'OTREC,
publication
donc la fédération
from OTREC, so the
des employeurs du
Federation
service de
of
l'hôtellerie et de la restauration
employers
européenne,
in the
qui notamment
restaurant
a fait
and
une analyse
hotel
sur
sectors
l'anticipation
in
des
Europe,
besoins en Europe sur le
and
secteur.
who have anticipated the
Derrière des
needs in
publications
Europe,
aussi faites par l'OIT
and
également sur
also
des
a
situations
publication
mondiales
on
du
the
secteur, mais qui
ILO
quand même sont des
by
sources
the
d'inspiration
ILO.
et de réflexion
So those are
par rapport
all
au secteur. Des liens aussi par rapport
useful
notamment
documents,
à la feuille de route du
and
Maroc sur le
also the
secteur du
roadmap
transport.
of
Donc ici, un puits
Morocco on
d'informations
the
qui peuvent
tourism
aussi vous
sector in Morocco.
faciliter
So
vos
information that can
réflexions pour
facilitate your
les
reflections
mois à venir.
for the coming
J'insisterai
months.
effectivement sur le
And
fait
I
que
will also
ceci n'est que le
insist on the
début en
fact that
fait
this is
d'un
just the
processus que
beginning
nous, en
of
tant
a process
que
that
THAMM Plus
we,
OIT, nous
as THAMM
engageons
Plus ILO,
à maintenir et
we
à essayer
want
le
to
plus possible de
maintain, and
mettre
we will try as
en
much as
pratique
possible
et de
to
rendre concrètes certaines
make
des
it
activités
practical
proposées.
and
Il y a
to
des activités déjà
um,
assez concrètes
so there are
qui ont été soulevées et
already
que
some
nous, en tant que
practical
THAMM Plus OIT,
activities
nous
that
nous
were
engageons
raised, and
à faire le suivi.
we,
Et si c'est
as the
validé, bien
ILO
évidemment,
TAM, we
par les
engage to
différents
do the
acteurs, les
monitoring.
parties prenantes,
If
que nous
this
nous
is
engageons
validated
à
by
mettre en œuvre
the other
durant la durée
stakeholders, we
du projet.
engage ourselves to
Je vais
implement it
m'arrêter
during
là.
the project. So
J'aimerais
I will
finir
stop
par
here, and
dire
I
bien
would like
évidemment un
to
grand merci.
finish
Un
by
grand merci
saying a
tout
big
d'abord
thank you,
à Hicham
first of all, to
et à l'équipe du
Isham
centre de formation de
and
l'OIT
to
pour
the
leur
team
travail
of the training
fourni
center
dans
of the
l'organisation,
ILO
la
for their
facilitation
work, for their
de ce forum
facilitation
depuis le premier
of this
webinaire.
forum from
Bien
the very
évidemment, un grand
first
merci à tous
webinar. And I also
à
want
vous,
to
les
thank
participants,
all the
qui ont été
participants
actifs et
for
impliqués
your
tout au long
active participation and for your
des différentes
engagement
phases de ce
during
forum.
all
C'est un
the
long
different
processus
phases of
et pourtant
this
vous avez à chaque fois
forum. It
répondu
was a
présent
long
et
process,
vous avez
but you have
répondu de
always
façon active. Donc
been
vraiment,
present in an active
cette
way.
co-construction, finalement,
So
nous ne
this
sommes que des
co-building,
facilitateurs d'un dialogue et
we're
le
just the
résultat de ce
facilitators
que nous
of a
faisons nous
dialogue, and the
ne
outcomes
sert
of
que pour
these
faciliter justement cette
dialogue
discussion et
is the
potentiellement la
result
valider,
of
mais
your
c'est avant tout le résultat de
participation
vos flux et de
and
vos réflexions.
of your
Bien
reflections.
évidemment, en tant
And
que OIT, nous
obviously, as
souhaitons
ILO, we want
souligner
to
et
highlight
remercier
and to
l'engagement
thank the
du MEDEC
engagement
et de l'Union
of
européenne qui tout au long
MIDEPEC
du
and the
processus
European Union, who have been
engagés et
from the
ont toujours
beginning
répondu présent
engaged and
pour
always present
l'organisation, pour
for
la
the
mise en œuvre.
organization, for
Donc,
the implementation.
c'est véritablement, je
And
pense, un effort à souligner.
this is
Cette
an effort that we
co-construction,
need to highlight. So this was a really
au-delà
a
de cette feuille de route, mais même du
co-building
forum
beyond
avec
the forum and
le
beyond the
MIEPEC
roadmap with the
et l'Union
MIEPEC
européenne.
and
Vraiment
the
un travail
European
collectif, si je peux
Union.
me
So
permettre.
I would say a
Merci
teamwork.
finalement,
And
si je peux me
finally,
permettre aussi aux
thanks
interprètes
to our
pour leur
interpreters
flexibilité.
for their
Aujourd'hui encore,
flexibility.
nous avons
And
dépassé
today we are over time, but I want to thank you for being like the trade union between the different participants and to make sure that there is a good understanding. And finally, thanks to thanks to the team of the ILO THAMM Plus for all the work that has been done by Jihan, Chaim, Myriam, and Majida, who are present, and also Aurelia, who are in this webinar. So I think we will be in touch, maybe in the first time via email. We will send the presentation, and you will also have access to eCampus, and very quickly you will have some news regarding the next steps, especially the tourism forum. And as mentioned, Raïm and some participants, the discussions on the forum that took place on transport are still continuing. So I would like to think that the forum is a long-term process that doesn't stop with the last webinar, but that is a continuous process. And with some results during the whole THAMM Plus project, and we hope even beyond the project. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day and enjoy your lunch, because I think that on both sides of the Mediterranean, it's time for lunch. Thank you, Miki, also for your facilitation. Well, thank you, Myriam. Thank you, everyone, for your active participation. Thanks to the interpreters, and I wish you a wonderful day.
Merci, au revoir.
C'est bon, d'accord, c'est bon.